subscribe, like the video, and, if possible, join Patreon. But if you don't have much money, you can support the channel by watching the novels on euroaudiobooks.com. Remember that you can participate in the polls so that your favorite novel gets published for free.
Dragonite? People from a Yulong family came to challenge. Damn, it's the first time I've seen our Kanto quasi-god at such a close distance. The audience watched the Pokémon flying on the floating board, and they were suddenly excited. Quasi-Brandon represents the powerful, but also represents the rare. Many people here have basically never really seen the quasi-god. They did not expect that on the first day of the opening of the Cerulean Gymnasium, there would be a trainer with Dragonite to challenge. Misty was also taken aback. Dragonite? Surely, a trainer with Dragonite will not be unable to enter the court's competition, right? Collect all 8 badges, which can be used for 2 years. That is, as long as you have 8 badges, if you fail this year, you can continue to participate in next year, and you don't need to continue to challenge the gym. After participating in the court's competition for 2 years, I never had the chance to participate again. This is to prevent someone from repeating all the time and using this bug to win the league championship. After all, the purpose of the court's competition is to select talents and provide a steady stream of fresh blood for Alliance. An old fried dough stick has been challenging the court's competition, so it loses its original meaning. Could it be this year's Yulong family's new trainer? Every world has privileges, and the Yulong family is one of the largest families in Kanto. It is possible to let the new generation trainers of one's own family set off early and challenge the gym in advance, so as to avoid starting at the same time with all the new generation trainers at that time. Otherwise, at that time, challenging a gym will have to queue for a long time. There is only half a month left before this year's new generation of trainers will start traveling. Half a month in advance. This is not considered a violation, and it is not directly exempted from the challenge, going straight to the court's competition. Early departure is a privilege given to big families by the Alliance, and the Yulong family plays a very important role in the Alliance. Dragonite, where's your trainer? Asked Misty. Roar. Dragonite growled. Misty shook her head. As expected of the Yulong family, she was really confident she didn't show up to command the battle and let Dragonite fight on her own. Misty felt underestimated. I hope you don't overturn the gutter. She motioned to the referee. The referee understood and waved the flag in his hand. The rules of the game are 3v3. The gym owner cannot change Pokémon during the game. The challenger can change Pokémon with Solation. If all 3 Pokémon on one side fall, the game will end. Misty throws a Pokeball. A 5-pointed star appears in the water, with a ruby embedded in the center. Water System plus Super Energy System Pokémon, Starmie. Game start. The referee waved the flag in his hand. Han-Han-Long roared. His little feet were at a loss on the floating board. He didn't like water, and he was a little irritable standing on the water. It flew up off the kickboard. Starmie, rapid spin. Starmie spun wildly like a spinning top and rushed directly towards Dragonite. The water on Starmie's body was in the rapid spin, and some of it fell on Han-Han-Long's body, which made Han-Han-Long feel uncomfortable for a while. It intends to end the fighting quickly. A gust of wind made his face hurt. Starmie was spinning rapidly and was about to hit Han-Han-Long. Han-Han-Long's hands were covered by thunder. His fists were raised high, and then he punched down. Boom! Lao Gao made a loud noise and splashed water. Starmie was hammered directly into the swimming pool, and the resistance of the water could not withstand the danger of the punch. Its body blasted a big hole at the bottom of the swimming pool. Starmie immediately lost consciousness. This scene directly made everyone stupid. FK. One punch for a second. Misty was also in a daze, close to the peak of the normal level. Close to the Starmie of the elite level, was seconded. Ho-ho! Han-Han-Long urged her to hurry up. Misty throws a second Pokémon, and the same fast-swimming frog reappears. Without waiting for Misty to direct, the fast-stroke frog. Dragonite flapped its wings. Another punch. Boom! Another large pit appeared under the water, and the fast-swimming frog was directly embedded in the pit and had lost consciousness. The audience was dumbfounded again. Just now, the fast-swimming frog of Geodude, Onix, and Growlithe who defeated the last challenger with 1 punch and 3 seconds. Also punch for a second. Here, Misty throws the third and final Pokémon. Psyduck held his head, his eyes were dull, and he tilted his head with a face of thinking about life, looking at his master Misty, as if he was asking why the other party asked him to come out. Out of the corner of his eye, he caught sight of the fast-swimming frog still embedded in the water without retracting the Pokeball. I looked at another big pit next to the fast-swimming frog. Then he looked at Han-Long, who was clenching his fist, and the thunder light was shining on his fist. It silently turned its head and held its head with one hand, took the other hand off its head, reached into the pocket of its owner, Misty, and took out its own Pokeball. Then he opened the Pokeball to himself. A red light flashed. It disappeared in place. Audience, Misty. Han-Long. I surrender. Misty looked helpless and looked at Han-Long with some disbelief in his eyes. Elite class, she simply doubts life. The trainer who just left the house has an elite-level Pokémon? If she didn't know that people in the Yulong family would disdain to do so, she would think that the Yulong family gave the family's powerful Dragonite to the children of the family. Once the Yulong family detects that they have the power of Yulong, they will give a Pokémon egg. Those who have the power of the dragon will grow up with Dratini, and the power of the dragon will be the most effective. Therefore, in the Yulong family, there is no such thing as directly giving the powerful Dragonite to the children of the family. This means that this elite-level Dragonite is indeed the Pokémon of the trainer who doesn't even show his face. Misty sighed. The Yulong family is really terrifying. There was Yolongdu before, and now there is this mysterious trainer who owns elite Dragonite as soon as he goes out. This is the Water System Gym badge. Go back and get the trainer for you. I look forward to seeing your master's true face in the quartz competition. Han-Long picked up the shiny water badge, flew into the sky, and left the Cerulean Gym. But in the audience, a trainer wearing sunglasses, looking in the direction where Dragonite disappeared, with greed flashing in his eyes. He quietly flowed out of the gymnasium. Chapter 51, Pokémon Hunters Panic. Fourth more. Han-Long flew up and left Cerulean City. Alakazam had gone back one step ahead of it, wings flapping, leaving Cerulean City. Soon it flew into the boundless sea and sky, and the clouds and mist retreated rapidly on both sides. Han-Long looked at the drop-shaped badge in his hand and smiled silly. Human beings like this, so if you give this to the owner must be very happy. But during the fight, just now, I heard from those humans that there are 8 badges in total. Han-Long tilted his head and thought for a while. Then he went to win the remaining 7 coins back and give them to the master. Give the owner 8 badges, and the owner will definitely praise himself. It is giggling, and it has already started to fantasize in its mind that it has collected all 8 badges, and the owner will reward itself with something delicious. This Han-In is very excited. Sure enough, I, Han-Long, know the master best. About an hour later, the outline of the island can already be seen in front of my eyes. Approaching rapidly, he soon reached the shore of the island. But Han-Long didn't know that behind it, in the seemingly empty sky, there was a flying machine full of sci-fi atmosphere. The flying machine became invisible and followed Dragonite far behind. Inside the flying device sat a young man wearing sunglasses with naturally curly black hair. He is a Pokémon hunter, the elite of the Hunter organization, Hunter Code, K. Pokémon hunters are notorious all over the world. They like to capture other people's Pokémon for sale. As long as they have money, they even dare to play the idea of mythical beasts. At this time, Hunter K is sitting on his flying device, which has the function of invisibility. Through the screen of the flyer, Hunter K was a little disappointed. The island in front is not Dragon Island. He noticed that the Dragonite had a jade-shaped pattern on its forehead in the Cerulean Gymnasium. Although it was only for a short time, he was sure that there was definitely a jade pattern on the Dragonite's forehead. He once read an ancient book, The Holy Land of Dragonite, the Dragon King of Dragon Island. The pattern on its forehead is exactly the same as the Dragonite in front of him. This Dragonite probably doesn't have a trainer, but simply likes badge, so it will challenge the Cerulean Gym. Moreover, he estimated that the opponent's strength should be quasi-elite. Therefore, he has been secretly following Dragonite, hoping to find the legendary Dragon Island. But I didn't expect it to be. He squinted his eyes. This Dragonite is definitely related to Dragon Island, since this is not Dragon Island. Then subdue this Dragonite and ask where Dragon Island is. Dragon Island, that's Dragonite's island. Legend has it that the Dragonite population lives in the Dragon Island, and once they get the specific location of the Dragon Island, they will develop. Dragonite, this kind of quasi-god Pokémon, whether it is its own breeder or sold on the black market, is a blood prophet. Hunter K is about to make a move. This Dragonite should only be a quasi-elite. With its own means, it is more than enough to capture the opponent. At this time, boom, a thunderbolt fell from the sky. Boom! The entire flying machine caught fire, and sirens blared from the cabin. Swablu, he quickly released his Pokémon Ride and mounted. The flying device exploded directly, turning into a pile of scrap iron and falling into the sea. Hunter K was dumbfounded. What's going on? Why did my flying device suddenly explode? However, abruptly, he found his Swablu whimpering and shaking. Suddenly, he saw something out of the corner of his eye. The pupils suddenly shrank to a point. I saw a Wailord appearing on the sea behind me. I don't know when. Wailord's back emerged from the water as if it were land. It has 3 Pokémon standing on its back. One is full of cyanwood color, very elegant, with 2 streamers on its tail. One is brown and mighty. One is all golden, with lightning streaks on its skin. The man's throat wriggled with difficulty. As a Pokémon hunter, he naturally knew what Pokémon these 3 were. The legendary 3 holy beasts. Suicune, Entei, Raikou. Raikou's body was shining with thunder, and it was obvious that the lightning strike just now was struck by him. The Pokémon hunter's face suddenly turned pale. Why? Why is it here? Zizizi. Boom. Thunder light flickered on Raikou's body. A bolt of lightning strikes down again, so fast that it can't be avoided at all. He quickly jumped off Swablu and fell into the sea. Lightning struck the green cotton bird, which let out a scream. Its body became scorched black, and its hair exploded. Instantly killed, Hunter K fell into the water and used the Pokeball to retrieve the green cotton bird. 3 legendary Pokémon stared directly at him, and he didn't dare to move. It's not waiting for the 3 holy beasts to make a move. An orange slap enlarged in front of him. Boom. Hunter K fainted directly. Han Hanlong looked at Hunter K, who was knocked unconscious by him. The human being must have come here for Snatch's own badge. Sure enough, this badge is very precious to humans. Let this human being be handled by the master. Han Hanlong took a look at Suicune. This big dog actually came calling for friends. It lifted the fainted Hunter K and flew towards the center of the small lake. When flying, a black Goyu appeared on the forehead and between the brows, and then disappeared quickly. At the same time, there is a sea area next to the Indigo Plateau, which is jointly administered by Chengdu and the Kanto region. This sea area is called the Devil Sea area. It is shrouded in fog all year round, and all electronic equipment will fail inside. Over time, no one went there. In this Devil Sea, a huge sea current rises. A gigantic monster came out, and it looked exactly like Dragonite, shrouded in mist, but its size was many times bigger than Han Hanlong. It is simply the Dragonite after extremely large. There is confusion in the eyes of this Dragonite, and the stripes of black are all over the body. It seemed to feel something. It seemed to be called by something. Boom. The huge body began to move on the sea. The belated 4th update. This chapter from 12 o'clock to 3 o'clock has been deleted and modified, and I have been unsatisfied. Chapter 52. Entei is frightened with his tail between his legs in front of the cabin. Luchin is playing with Piku and Shelebi. Out of the corner of his eye, 3 figures approached. Suicune, where did you go? Did you pick up your friend? Luchin looked at Raikou and Entei next to Suicune. Beside him, Sabrina stared at the 3 Pokémon with wide eyes. As the owner of the Kanto Superpower Gym, she naturally knows the legendary Sanshing Beast. The 3 holy beasts actively follow their master? How does this feel so far-fetched, so unbelievable? Master, are they all your Pokémon? She spoke dully. Oh no, Suicune is, but these 2 should be its friends. Luchin said to Entei and Raikou, are you following me? NTI and Reiku looked at each other. They are very excited now, because staying on this island, staying beside this man, they feel a sense of comfort. The whole body is incomparably carefree, and I can vaguely feel the strength in my body slowly changing. Although it is slow, it also makes NEI extremely excited. For hundreds of years, it has found countless ways to enhance its own strength, but all ended in failure. Now, as soon as he stepped into this small island and got close to this man, his understanding of the law of fire was slowly increasing. It just made him ecstatic. Suicune didn't lie to himself. This man could actually make them stronger. At this moment, NTI and Reiku fell into deep thought when they heard the human being's question. This human does have the ability to increase their strength. However, they're the famous 3 holy beasts. Now, following this human being easily, will it make this human feel that the beast is cheap? Will you use yourself like a normal Pokemon in the future? NTI growled. It communicated with Reiku. Finally, there is a decision. As the 3 holy beasts, their haughty nature cannot follow human beings. They cannot follow. They can only cooperate and help human beings when necessary. But this human being is not qualified to command himself. He is not his Pokemon. NTI intends to show his strength in front of this human. Flames burst from its limbs. Suddenly, 2 terrifying eyes fell on it. It just feels like it's suffocating. On the lawn not far from the human, a red Pokemon was blowing fire and roasting something on a barbecue grill. On the other side, a whale-like Pokemon is controlling the water flow in the lake and washing vegetables. At this time, the 2 Pokemon seemed to sense its thoughts and looked over with their eyes. In a flash, its spiritual world saw the terrible eruption of a volcano. The earth dried up, and the sea flooded the entire land. Countless scalding magma and terrifying sea water flooded towards it. NTI was so scared that he almost peed, and the towering tail was caught between his legs for a moment. The flames under his feet shrank back instantly. Wow, woof, it nodded to Lu-chan and kept circling around Lu-chan like a pug. Reiku was a little stunned. Didn't he agree to give this human being a blow and confirm the future cooperation relationship? Then it also saw a red and a blue Pokemon, one grilling and one washing vegetables. Meow meow, it jumped up in fright and followed NEI like 2 pet dogs, constantly circling around Lu-chan. Shindu of the Celestic Sea of the Earth willingly stayed at the side of the human. These 2 were at the same level as the boss Ho-Oh. They are all positions for doing odd jobs, grilling, and washing vegetables. Just 2 mere 3rd-level beasts. And let others show off their power? Establish a partnership? What if the Ho-Oh boss came to resurrect himself again? NTI and Reiku glanced at Suicune lying on the grass with a playful look on his face, with resentment in his eyes. Suicune is definitely intentional. Then you 2 will stay on the island with Suicune from now on. Lu-chan patted their heads. NTI and Suicune were instantly relieved. Aside, this is subdued? Sabrina stared blankly. Lu-chan turned to her and asked, "What else? Isn't that how Pokemon are subdued?" Gyarados, Suicune, and Kyogre all actively follow themselves in this way. Sabrina was speechless. "Master, do you know what they are?" Lu-chan was taken aback for a moment and probed. "I know. Sabrina," she roared wildly in her heart. "So can you not be so calm? These are the legendary 3 holy beasts." In the end, she was speechless. Maybe this is the master. Han Long was dissatisfied with the 3 big dogs attracting attention. Throw Hunter K on the ground. Make a plopping sound. Only then did Lu-chan and Sabrina pay attention to Han Long. "I'm going, in. Did you beat someone up?" Looking at the person Han Long threw on the lawn, Lu-chan's eyes bulged. No wonder he came back so much later than Alakazam. It knocked people out and brought them back? Lu-chan had a headache. It really was a mistake to let this product out. He raised his hand to hit Han Long. This should be the notorious Pokemon hunter. Looking at the costume, it should be the elite of the hunter organization. Sabrina's words came from the side. Lu-chan frowned slightly. He was not an idiot, a Pokemon hunter, and the 4 prefixes of notorious. He knew what this guy was up to. He glanced at Hunter K and dared to be a Pokemon hunter with his strength. Even Han Long couldn't beat him. What a dish. Well, you're doing well. Looking at the Han Long, who looked aggrieved, Lu Chun patted his belly speechlessly. The idiot smiled for a moment, and then spread his palms as if offering a treasure. What is this? Lu Chun looked at a drop-shaped thing lying quietly in Han Long's palm, which looked like a brooch. On the side, Sabrina's spiritual power is connected to Alakazam. As soon as you connect to Alakazam, you know what your master is asking. Master, this Dragonite is going to challenge the gym. Sabrina is speechless, as expected of her master's Pokemon. She just has personality. But she looked at Lu Chun, who was pinching the water badge, and scrutinized it carefully. The other party obviously didn't recognize that it was a water badge. No way. Don't know your master? Never played the quartz tournament? Don't know what a gym is? That's right. My master should be the kind of hermit who lives in seclusion on this small island. Sabrina rolled her eyes and suddenly had a brilliant idea. This is a badge. I also have one here. This is a very precious badge. It is said that all the trainers are working hard to collect this badge. Sabrina took out a badge. She is the owner of Psychic, so Psychic badge can be taken out easily. It is said that after collecting all 8 badges, something mysterious will happen. I also got this badge by accident. I will give it to Master and see if there's a chance to collect all 8 badges. Come on, Dragonite, try to collect all 8. There was a sly look in Sabrina's eyes. When the time comes for the quartz contest, when members of the Alliance see a trainer participating with the 3 holy beasts, will everyone be shocked? Chapter 53. The shock caused by the super ancient Dragonite. Han Long smiled silly when he saw the owner put away the badge he had won. Hearing Sabrina say that it is very precious and that countless trainers need this badge, it grinned. Sure enough, Han Long, Woody, just know that this thing must be very precious. Next, just collect the remaining 6 badges. At that time, the master will definitely reward me severely. So what about this Pokemon hunter? Lu Chun asked. Leave it to me. I need to ask something. Sabrina's psychic vented out, wrapped around the unconscious Hunter K, and the opponent's body floated up. Sabrina took Hunter K to the previously abandoned cabin. As soon as the confusion surged, Hunter K let out a scream and woke up. Who is your superior? Hunter J. Hunter K said tremblingly, knowing that there are actually 3 legendary beasts on this island. He dare not have any other thoughts. Hunter J. This name is very famous, and he is also a ruthless person who dares to do anything to any Pokemon if he has money. Master Seclusion does not want to be disturbed by others. Once it is leaked, there will be endless people to harass, especially this Hunter J. With that in mind, terrible mental power rushed into Hunter K's mind violently. In an instant, Hunter K didn't even scream, and his eyes were dull. Has become a useless person. Pokemon hunters, death is not a pity. For Snatch Pokemon, their methods are cruel. It is not uncommon for a trainer to be killed directly once he takes a fancy to the opponent's Pokemon. This kind of person is not enough to die 100 times. Not to mention that Sabrina didn't kill the other party, but just turned the other party into a fool. Leave it to Jenny tomorrow. With a flash of thought, Hunter K tilted his head and passed out again. After dealing with Hunter K, Sabrina and Lu Chun enjoyed a barbecue on the grass, which Sabrina specially asked Alakazam to bring back from Cerulean City. At the same time, then what is that? Indigo Plateau. Many trainers are catching Pokemon. At this moment, they felt the trembling of the ground. Someone made a terrified sound and saw a huge figure approaching in the misty sea area in the distance. Boom! The figure stepped out of the mist, planted its gigantic foot on the cliff, and stepped into the Indigo Plateau. Seeing this figure, countless people stared wide-eyed, their pupils shrinking into a black dot. They even stopped breathing, and all they could hear was their beating heart. A Dragonite as huge as a mountain. It stood on the Indigo Plateau's ground like a demon, with black's pattern on its body, just like the totem normal. The other party didn't show any aura. It just stood there quietly, already made people feel the huge pressure and made countless people's faces turn pale. How the huge Dragonite flapped its wings like a normal 12-level wind. The ancient tree was blown off in the middle, and the surrounding trainers and their own Pokémon were directly blown by the wind. The huge Dragonite's huge body flew up, and wherever it passed, sand and rocks flew, thorns shattered, and the powerful wind pressure destroyed everything. It flew into the distance, leaving only the messy scene. Many trainers who were blown away stood up in embarrassment, and a few were unlucky and directly hit a tree and passed out. They were incomparably horrified. Just flapping their wings caused such terrifying destructive power. If they did it, it would be terrifying. They quickly notified Alliance. Actually, Alliance already knew about it without them notifying them. The headquarters of Kanto Alliance is an Indigo Plateau. The Indigo Plateau was huge, but the movement caused by the huge Dragonite was also noticed by Alliance. When the picture of the huge Dragonite spread to the eyes of all the Alliance executives, even though they were well informed, they were also stunned, their mouths slightly open wide. This Dragonite. Why is this Dragonite so big? Extremely large? No, it's not gigantic. Gigantic is not in this form. There will be a faint red light flashing around the body, and there are only 3 rounds of Gigantic. After using the Gigantic skill 3 times, it will return to its original form. Connect to Professor Oak. Soon, the figure of Professor Oak appeared on the screen beside him. What's wrong? Professor Oak, we're in big trouble. Alliance synced the footage to Professor Oak. In the picture, a Dragonite the size of a mountain is galloping with totem-like patterns on its body. Super ancient Dragonite? Professor Oak was also stunned. The eyes of the people from the Alliance lit up. As expected, they are Professor Oak, and they really know the origin of the Dragonite. What is an ultra-ancient Dragonite? Ultra-ancient Dragonite, also called ultra-ancient Pokémon. In the ultra-ancient period, which is unknown how many years ago, Pokémon were not as small as they are now, but each one was as huge as a mountain. I don't know why, but Pokémon's body size became what it is now. This black, totem-like texture is unique to the super ancient Pokémon. Professor Oak is also a bit of shocker. Why do super ancient Pokémon appear, and this Dragonite has survived from super ancient times to the present? In fact, the category of super ancient Pokémon is very wide. Those mythical beasts can also be said to be ultra-ancient Pokémon, and they have survived from the ultra-ancient times, or even the years before the ultra-ancient times, to the present. Professor Oak has also been studying the topic of ultra-ancient Pokémon. Why can't the body size of mythical beasts be minimized, while the size of ordinary Pokémon is minimized? So what to do now? The power of this ultra-ancient Dragonite is too powerful, and the hurricane it caused has caused severe damage to several small towns. This ultra-ancient Dragonite is handed over to our Yulong family. Our Yulong family has the power of Yulong. Let's see if we can subdue it. The head of the family has already taken people away. In the Alliance conference room, a middle-aged man stood up and said, besides being a guest of the Pokémon Alliance, he is also a member of the Yulong family. Looking at the ultra-ancient Dragonite on the screen, excitement flashed across his face. Once the family subdues the ultra-ancient Dragonite, the strength of the family will be raised to another level. Today I was looking for a house to move out all day, and I didn't move into the new house until after 10 o'clock in the evening. The last chapter plus this one is a total of 5,000 words, and there is another chapter, so I'll write it right away. Chapter 54. I advise you not to think about the super ancient Dragonite. That one, you can't afford. All the TVs in the entire Kanto are broadcasting news about this super ancient Dragonite. Countless people were terrified. This mountain-sized Dragonite would cause huge damage if it fell on any city. With just one kick, you can destroy pieces of houses and buildings. A hurricane created by fanning its wings can uproot a big tree. Where the hell is this huge Dragonite? Fortunately, the Alliance sent out a notice, and people from the 4 elites and the Yulong family have gone to stop the huge Dragonite. This made the residents of Kanto a little more at ease. Moreover, Alliance also discovered that the ultra-ancient Dragonite is flying in a straight line, and there are no large cities on the flying route. The only large city is the end of the ultra-ancient Dragonite flying line, Cerulean City. The gathering places along the way, small towns and villages have also been evacuated, so the loss of personnel is not large, but some houses were destroyed by the hurricanes set off by the super ancient Dragonite. Upon hearing the news, the Yulong family also sped up their actions. From the looks of it, this super ancient Dragonite should leave the Kanto region and enter the sea from Cerulean City, which will cause huge damage to Cerulean City. Moreover, once it enters the sea, there is no trace of it, so they plan to subdue each other before the other reaches Cerulean City. Whoosh, the high-end combat power of the Yulong family, was fully dispatched. In soaring in the sky, countless Dragonites galloped past, with people from the Yulong family riding on their backs. Soon a giant appeared in their line of sight, like a huge mountain flying in the air. So big, watching it live is much more shocking than watching it through a screen. Moreover, the size of this ultra-ancient Dragonite is several times larger than that on the screen. Superior. Whoosh, these Dragonites flew over rapidly, approaching the super ancient Dragonites. This time, the Yulong family's high-end combat power is on display, and the lowest level of all Dragonite is elite. This ultra-ancient Dragonite and their Yulong family are bound to win. Super ancient Dragonite, follow our Yulong family. We have the ability to enhance the strength of Dragonite. An elder of the Yulong family, Yulongking, said, the Dragonite under him is his trump card, which is now legendary. Free. After finishing speaking on the backs of all the Dragonites, the hair of the people of the Yulong family was unwinding, and the power of the Yulong was released, tried to attract the attention of the super ancient Dragonite. The ultra ancient Dragonite glanced at them, and two thick white breaths spit up from his nostrils, and suddenly a gust of wind hit them. Yulongking's Dragonite was blown wildly and swayed wildly, and finally had to slow down and retreat. Whoosh! Another Dragonite figure flew up from the sky. The figure of Yulongdu appeared. He was still in Vermilion City and continued to look for the Dragonite trainer. As a result, I received a phone call from my family and saw the news on TV. He hurried over, and when he saw the huge, ultra-ancient Dragonite in front of him, he was also taken aback. He once fought against Dondi of the Galar region, and after Dandy's Charizard was gigantic, it could only reach the belly of this ultra-ancient Dragonite. Dude, your power to control the dragon is very strong. Go try it, and see if you can attract its attention. Yulong King Dao, Yulongdu is not only invincible among his peers, but the power of Yulong in his body is unmatched by anyone in the whole family. Yulongdu flew over, and the power of Yulong radiated out. But the ultra-ancient Dragonite remained unmoved. As far away as Sinnoh region Sinnoh Alliance, Cynthia has just returned to her abode after dealing with the aftermath of a Noldur's uprising. I have been busy these days, and I am exhausted every day. She misses Lu Chen's island a little bit. On Lu Chen's island, she is extremely comfortable and has no pressure. After work, take a vacation in a few days. Suddenly, the communicator rang, and it was a call from my friend Diantha. Once connected, Cynthia, turn on the TV quickly. Something big happened in Kanto. Diantha's voice came from inside. Cynthia was taken aback and turned on the TV. As soon as the screen lit up, there was news about the Kanto region. A gigantic Dragonite with a mysterious pattern on its body greeted the eyelids. Super ancient Dragonite? Cynthia was slightly taken aback. Apart from being an Alliance champion, she was also an amateur archaeologist, but in terms of professional knowledge, she was not inferior to a professional archaeologist at all. The Pokémon in the Ultra-Ancient period has a larger body than the extremely large Pokémon, and has mysterious rune patterns on its body. This huge Dragonite is obviously an Ultra-Ancient Dragonite. It is unbelievable that there are super ancient Pokémon other than mythical beasts alive. The news came that members of the Yulong family have gone to conquer this ultra-ancient Dragonite. Diantha said. Cynthia nodded. It's normal. Isn't Dragonite synonymous with the Yulong family? It's normal for them to want to tame this super ancient Dragonite. Diantha looked serious, but I checked her out just now. This ultra-ancient Dragonite started from the Misty Sea area of Indigo Plateau and flew all the way in a straight line. It will cross the Kanto region and then enter the sea from Cerulean City. What do you think it means to fly in a straight line without changing the route at all? Diantha said, is there something attracting it? Or is it going straight to something? It has a purpose, not a headless fly. If this ultra-ancient Dragonite has been flying forward, crossed the Cerulean City, and entered the sea, and the subsequent route has not changed, if it is still flying in a straight line, that island, is also in this straight line. That one. Cynthia was taken aback for a moment, then her eyes widened. You mean this super ancient Dragonite is going to Mr. Liu Chen's island? Very likely, no. 90%. Otherwise, it's all too coincidental. It's super ancient Dragonite. It's flying in a straight line. It's flying with a destination. And Mr. Liu Chen's island happens to be in. Is it really a coincidence that Dragonite flying's route range? All of this. This ultra-ancient Dragonite. Could it also be Mr. Liu Chen's Pokémon? It is very possible that on his island, super ancient Pokémon are nothing. After all, in super ancient times, Dragonite is just an ordinary Pokémon, and it is only a quasi-god Pokémon. And if it's not his Pokémon, it's definitely for him, Diantha replied. Then what would happen if Mr. Liu Chen knew that his Pokémon was beat up by someone else and tried to capture it? Cynthia opened her mouth and asked, then think about it. If those two exist and explode in the Kanto region, what will happen to them? Cynthia's scalp tingles when she thinks of Guladon and Kyogre's reign in the Kanto region. You are familiar with Yolongdu. Please talk to him. Don't really PS off Mr. Liu Chen. Then no one will be able to save the Yulong family. Diantha continued. Cynthia quickly hung up the communicator and called Yolongdu. Kanto, after Yolongdu failed in his attempt, he also retreated. People from the Yulong family are discussing other ways. Unexpected, the communicator rang, and I took it out to see that it was Cynthia. What's wrong? I'm trying to figure out how to capture the super ancient Dragonite. Hurry up, stop. I advise you to stop. This ultra-ancient Dragonite is related to that person, and the existence of that person cannot be offended by your Yulong family. That one. Yes, no one in the world can afford it. No one in the world can afford it? Yulongdu was a little dazed after hearing this, and then laughed dumbly. Okay, I'll hang up first when I hear you tell jokes later. Elder, what should we do now? The power of Yulong doesn't work at all. Has the humanity of the Yulong family. Yulongking thought for a while and made a decision. There is a wilderness and no man's land in front of us. We will conquer it directly by fighting. The super ancient Dragonite, we must take it down. Soon, the ultra-ancient Dragonite entered the sky in the wilderness and no man's land. Do it! Yolongking gave an order. Chapter 55. Enraged super ancient Dragonite, frightened Yulong family. Every Dragonite of the Yulong family accumulates energy in front of its mouth, and an energy ball becomes bigger little by little. In an instant, the sky and the earth were glaring with white light, as if there were countless small suns soaring in the sky. These Dragonites are all condensing dragon rage. Attack! Boom, boom, boom. All the dragon rage roared out. Looking from a distance, it was like launching missiles one after another. These Dragonites don't even need aiming, because the super ancient Dragonite's huge size is a living target. Bang, bang, bang in an instant, like a nuclear bomb exploding. Intense flames swept across the entire sky, and the whole world at the entrance was ablaze with red. Accompanied by a huge explosion, a shock wave swept across the entire soaring in the sky. The huge sound was ear-splitting, and a violent cry was produced. Thick smoke billowed and permeated soaring in the sky. A gust of wind blew up, and a mountain-like figure rushed out of the thick smoke. The eyes of the Yulong family all shrank. Unscathed. It didn't even break the skin. How is this possible? This is a legendary dragon, 5 champion dragons, and more than a dozen elite Dragonites using Dragon Rage with all their strength. What level is this super ancient Dragonite? They were slightly suffocated for breathing, so they couldn't be divine beasts, right? Far away, people from many families were watching the battle of the Yulong family. Seeing that the super ancient Dragonite was safe and sound under this terrible attack, they were also taken aback. The powerful strength of Dragonite is beyond doubt. With so many skill tilts, this ultra-ancient Dragonite is actually unharmed, like a tickle itch, which makes people feel horrible. The combined power of all the dragon rages just now is enough to raise a small city to the ground. Roar! Patriarch! The Patriarch is here. In the distance, the Patriarch of the Yulong family, Yulong Qi, rushed over. There were 3 Dragonites beside him, and the size of these 3 Dragonites was more than twice the size of the normal Dragonite. These 3 are the absolute heritage of the Yulong family, and they are also the trump card. 3 mythical Dragonites. Yulong rode his Dragonite to join his tribe, and the 3 beast-level Dragonites rose rapidly, reaching the sky above the super ancient Dragonites. They opened their mouths and sucked. The momentum on their bodies soared to the sky, and the power of law permeated the whole body. Boom! A huge white beam blasted out. Destroy the death ray. They're going to knock down the super ancient Dragonite from the sky. Bang, bang, bang. 3 extremely powerful destructive death rays directly hit the back of the super ancient Dragonite. This time, the attack worked. The huge power made the ultra-ancient Dragonite let out a muffled groan. Its huge body staggered and was knocked down sharply. Boom! It adjusted its body shape, and its feet landed on the ground in the wilderness in no man's land. It was beaten and landed. The super ancient Dragonite looked up at the 3 little ants and soaring in the sky, being attacked again and again. The clay figurines are very angry, not to mention the ultra-ancient Dragonite that has survived since the ultra-ancient period. Violence flashed across the face of the ultra-ancient Dragonite. In the ultra-ancient period, fighting every day, it is not a good stubble. Terrible energy condenses in front of its mouth, bright and terrifying. It opened its mouth and spit towards soaring in the sky, also using the destructive death light. Boom! FK! Everyone exclaimed in shock. A beam of light with a diameter of tens of meters sprayed out from its mouth. Compared with the destructive death beam used by the beast-level Dragonite before, it was as big as chopsticks. Boom! In soaring in the sky, the 3 beast-level Dragonites flapped their wings to avoid it. The terrifying beam of light shot directly into the sky, and the thick clouds were directly crushed, forming a huge beam of light tens of meters wide, connecting the sky and the earth. This beam of light can be seen from hundreds of miles away. This made the members of the Yulong family even more excited. If their Yulong family takes over this super ancient Dragonite, then they will get an absolute trump card. Moreover, this ultra-ancient Dragonite is definitely at the level of a beast. However, this terrifying body shape and strength are already close to the real beast. Their Yulong family is bound to win. Use Dragon God to dive. In order to allow Dragonite to better display its strength, members of the Yulong family landed on the top of a mountain. They direct their Dragonites to use the Dragon Dive. The Dragonites soared into the sky and came to the high sky. The mountains turned into a black spot, but the figure of the super ancient Dragonite was still very conspicuous. Looking at the huge, ultra-ancient Dragonite on the ground, 3 beast-level Dragonites swooped down. The rest of the Dragonites followed. Woo woo woo, the wind howled, and under the effect of gravity acceleration, their speed became faster and faster, and their bodies rubbed against the air, causing flames to burn around them. As the distance from ground became faster and faster, the speed of the Dragonites broke through the sound barrier. Their figures were distorted, and the flames around them also changed into a more bewitching cyanwood color. Their figures are also enlarged little by little in the eyes of the ultra-ancient Dragonite. The ultra-ancient Dragonite stared at these little ants and moths carefully, with doubts in his eyes. Similar? These are actually their own kind. The Dragonite of this era? However, the concentration of blood vessels is very low, but also of the same kind. Immediately afterwards, it flew into a rage. The Dragonite, with a mere low bloodline, dares to attack him. It looked at the Dragonites who swooped down on it, opened its mouth, and roared violently. Ong ho ho! The sound vibrated the air, and the air vibrated, producing ripples like ripples, and finally the sound turned into substance, forming a shock wave, blasting towards the Dragonites. In an instant, These Dragonites were hit head-on by the sonic attack. Bang, bang, bang. One by one, like birds with broken wings, they smashed into the ground. The only ones that still maintain the flying contest condition are the 3 beast-level Dragonites. However, the huge impact of the super ancient Dragonite sonic attack also forced their dragon gods to stop diving. Ultra ancient Dragonite watches them. The dark lines on his body emitted a faint light. Boom! The terrifying aura was released, the sky trembled, and the clouds that were tens of miles around were directly scattered by the shock. Suddenly, all the Dragonites felt a throbbing from the blood, which was a kind of oppression from the suppression of their own blood by the higher blood. All the Dragonites felt extremely uncomfortable. Their bodies froze in the air, and their eyes became dull. Next second, the Dragonite that crashed into the ground took off and came to the surroundings of the super ancient Dragonite. The same is true for the 3 mythical beasts Dragonite. Dragonite, what are you doing? Come back. The members of the Yulong family roared loudly and issued an order. But his own Dragonite turned a blind eye and followed behind the super ancient Dragonite. The super ancient Dragonite took a look at the little ants on the ground. They were all humans watching. It raised its foot abruptly and stomped down, twist the earth, and launch earthquake directly. Boom! In an instant, the earth trembled and the mountain shook. The mountain collapsed, a large fissure opened, and groundwater poured out. The onlookers were staggering. The entire wilderness and no man's land has become torn apart. It looks like a piece of glass fell on the ground. Not completely broken, but densely packed with cracks. The shocking fissure crisscross in the wilderness, no man's land. This is a warning. A warning from the ultra-ancient Dragonite. The ultra-ancient Dragonite flapped its wings, took off again, and its huge body began to climb. The Dragonite of the Yulong family followed closely behind, just like bodyguards and guards. Trayer, their figures disappeared in the wilderness and no man's land. The people of the Yulong family looked at the Dragonite who was going away. Their bodies were icy cold to the bone. Throw. Seeking flowers, the head of the Yulong family went blank in his mind. That ultra-ancient Dragonite can actually control ordinary Dragonite. All the top and high-end combat power of their Yulong family were taken away by control. Their Yulong family, even a champion Dragonite, is gone. A big family. The highest combat power, worry about elite? It's over. He tilted his head, as if he had been severely injured, and passed out directly on the ground. The other members of the Yulong family also froze in place, as if they had encountered a thunderbolt from the blue. Nearby, many other Kanto families who came to watch the play. They forgot to glance at the stunned Yulong family sympathetically and shook their heads with gloating eyes. One of the 5 major families in the Kanto region will be removed. But, feeling the tragedy of the Yulong family, looking at the ultra-ancient Dragonite that has become a black spot, they also put away the little Jiujiu in their hearts. This ultra-ancient Dragonite is too terrifying, already equivalent to a real mythical beast. Moreover, the huge size also caused no matter how powerful the attack was, hitting the opponent's body was like tickling. Even the champion level can't break the opponent's defense. This is simply impossible to fight. No one dares to stop the super ancient Dragonite. Can't stop it either. 1 ultra ancient Dragonite is enough, let alone 3 beast level Dragonites, more than 10 champion Dragonites, and more than 20 elite-level Dragonites behind him. With this combat power, you can walk sideways. The Kanto Alliance is also frightened. Although they have a whole card, they're not just using it randomly. They're worried about whether the super ancient Dragonite will have other ideas, such as seeing the city, and want to try Dragon Rage out of boredom. Finally, the super ancient Dragonite flew over the sky of Cerulean City, and flew into the vast sea with a group of Dragonite. This also made people in the entire Kanto region breathe a sigh of relief. Fine, fortunately, this ultra-ancient Dragonite just passed through the Kanto region and had no other actions. Simultaneously, all previous images are also sent back to other regions. Knowing that all the top Dragonites of the Yulong family have rebelled, some were shocked by the super ancient Dragonite's powerful strength, and some gloated. Sinnoh region. Cynthia just got off the phone with Diantha. She shook her head. Self-inflicted evil cannot live. Courting death, who can be blamed? It is estimated that the Yulong family is about to take a sudden turn for the worse, so it is not impossible for them to decline. There's still many Dragonite eggs in their family, but it would be impossible in a few hundred years to regain the peak. Is that Pokémon something they can deal with? Galar region. Galar Alliance is also discussing. They discuss the relationship between Dynamax and ultra-ancient Pokémon. Is Pokémon's extreme giantization a return to ancestors in a sense? Does the Wishing Star, extremely giant bracelet, have a power that can make Pokémon return to its ancestors? They hypothesized, is it possible to keep Pokémon in its extremely giant form? They know the power of Dynamax, but it can only be maintained for 3 rounds. After using 3 skills, it will automatically return to its original form. Kanto, a certain mysterious island. Team Rocket's home base. Ultra-ancient Pokémon. Interesting, I remember that Ariana has another study, which is also a study on making Pokémon bigger, and I don't know how the research is going. Sakamoto stroked the Persian under his feet and tasted the red wine. Although he also wants to try this ultra-ancient Dragonite. But now that everything at hand has been put down, he has more important things to do. God made by himself. It has begun to have its own consciousness. Tot, the god he dreamed of was born. Z. Chapter 56. The fruit of the star and moon god tree is ripe. At the same time, on the island, on the lawn of a wooden house next to a small lake, Luchun and Sabrina's stomachs are very full, and he hasn't eaten barbecue for a long time. Thank you, Erg. Luchun said to Nti, who was holding the grill. He rechristened Suakun, Nti, Reiku. Suakun is the big dog, Nti is the second dog, and Reiku is the third dog. With the addition of Nti, the fire-type Pokémon, Groudon was finally freed and entrusted Nei with the important business of grilling. Nti dare not refuse and feels very honored. It is actually engaged in the same thing as the first-level divine, Beast Graton. Kyogre also retired from washing vegetables and handed it over to Suakun. Reiko looked at a friend who was grilling and a friend who was washing vegetables. He froze in place, a little at a loss. What to do? They both have things to do. Do I have to find something to do too? But I'm from the electrical department, so I don't know what to do. It was trembling and restrained. No, I have to ask what I can do. Reiko looked at Guladon, who was lying on the stone, 3 zeros basking in the sun, walked over cautiously, and flattered him. Big brother Guladon, is there anything I can do? Is it? Guladon raised his eyelids and stared at Reiku. His mental power intertwined, and it gave Reiku a look. Yes. It pointed to Kyogre, who was lying dead in the water. Use your strongest electric skills and shoot at this lake. Reiku panicked. Then, Graton patted it on the head. There's no need to be restrained on the island. But remember, you can't use powerful skills on the island. The skills will destroy the island and Estoni, he ordinary Pokemon on the island. The owner loves the ordinary Pokemon on the island very much. If you cause damage to the island or scare the ordinary Pokemon, then you'll be lucky. Guladon yawned and fell asleep on the rock. Reiken nodded, feeling dazed at the same time. Guladon's temper became better. Before it was worse than Gyarados' temper. It was flammable and irritable at every turn. I didn't expect to become so Buddhist now. Not far away, Luchun glanced at Guladon lying on the rock and Kyogre lying dead on the water and rolled his eyes. 2 lazy people. I will sleep every day. In fact, Luchun doesn't know. Where the 2 of them are resting, they are fully comprehending the laws of him. 3 dogs, come here. Luchun beckoned. Reiku hurried over. Luchun stroked Reiku's hair, a little surprised. It's surprisingly easy to stroke. The hair looks hard, but it feels extremely soft when stroked. You don't need to be too restrained. You're just solation. You see that those few things are not too restrained. This will be your home from now on. Feeling the warmth from his forehead, Reiko looked in the direction of Luchun's finger. On the lawn, hand long, Gyarados, Piku, Shalebi, etc. Shalebi? The Shalebi are too small. They were attracted by Groudon and Kyogre before, and it is only now that there is a Shalebi. It doesn't know Shalebi, but the boss of the 3 holy beasts, Ho-Oh also told them about some strange beasts in the world and told them not to do anything to these beasts. They looked weak, but when they fought, Ho-Oh himself didn't dare to mess with them. There are 4 of them. One is long, small, and exquisite, similar in appearance to a pink kitten, but with long wings. It's called Mew. One is a Pokemon with onion heads and thick black eyes. It's called Celebi. One has a yellow star head and a cloth-like cape. It's called Jirachi. There is also a Pokemon that is covered in black and likes to hide in the shadows of people. It's called Marshadao. However, Boss Ho-Oh said, "The last one is just a coward, I don't care about it. And I was beaten up by it for disobedience before, so I don't know where to hide." Ho-Oh warned them that the other 3 must not hurt them, and if they see danger, they must desperately save them. "Isn't this Celebi in front of you?" Boss Ho-Oh said, "If you beat it, it can go back in time and hang up your weak you to beat Celebi, who has the ability to travel through time." Turns out, it's also the owner's Pokemon. Raikou shrank his neck, as if the 3 sacred beasts were really the lowest existence here. Suddenly, the entire small lake was filled with starlight. A dense mist of starlight spewed out from the Xingyue God tree. Under the leaves, there's a fruit dripping and forming. Results? The fruit is incomparably beautiful, perfectly round, and there are star-like things twinkling on it. Lu Chen walked over. "Pick a fruit from the star and moon god tree." Yuehua fruit. It absorbs the power of Yuehua and condenses it, which has the effect of increasing the speed of Pokemon's cultivation, duration of 1 hour. Can it increase the speed of cultivation? After counting, there are 9 fruits in total. It looked at the star and moon god tree again. Star and moon god tree. It has already borne fruit. This time it will bear fruit, moon blossom fruit. After picking, the fruit will be reborn. The fruit can be placed in the system backpack to prevent the effect from passing. The next time a fruit will be born is star fruit. It turns out that this Yuehua fruit tree can bear more than one kind of fruit. The next result is star fruit. Pick the 9 moon blossom fruit. 3 dogs, here you are. Lu Chen handed the Yuehua fruit to Raikou. Raikou took a bite and swallowed it. In an instant, the comprehension of the law that had been stagnant before, and the law that was slowly growing after arriving on the island, now turned into a torrential sea, and enlightenment appeared in its mind. Crack! The sound of the shackles breaking came from within the body. Raikou was shocked to find that he had broken through. Just like Suicune had broken through Zero Reiku's breakthrough, made NTI, who was still grilling in the distance, stare wide-eyed. He was still grilling. Raikou broke through without doing anything. Wow woof! Raikou ran over, wagging his tail. Lu Chen gave NEI 1 too. NEI whole swallow. Ka! The sound of shackles breaking also came from within the body. The comprehension of the law is like a sea that is constantly flowing, and enlightenment rises in the heart, and it will happen naturally, and it will naturally break through. NEI excited. I don't know how many 100 years, and finally broke through. It was full of energy, raised its head, and was about to roar aloud, discovering the joy in its heart. As soon as he opened his mouth, he saw Growl swaying towards him. It had already reached its throat and was about to burst into a roar. Growl immediately shrank back. It lowered its head, howled softly twice, and then slipped away. Groudon and Kyogre approached. He also looked at the Yuehua fruit in Lu Chen's hand. The fruit of the owner has very magical functions, and the vision of this little tree, when it grows, is even more extraordinary. It is not easy to know the fruit it bears with your feet. Finally, sit in a row and eat fruit 9 fruits. Guladon, Kyogre, NEI, Raikou, Suicune, Hanamla, Gyarados, Celebi, Pika. Just finished it all. Kyogre and Guladon eat the moonflower fruit. In an instant, they felt that their comprehension of the law had accelerated. The 2 were overjoyed and didn't want to waste this opportunity. 1 returned to the stone, and 10 went to the lake. The several divine beasts that ate the Yuehua fruit were all resting with their eyes closed, comprehending the power of the law. The only ones that are not affected are Hanhamlong, Gyarados, and Piku, because these 3 levels have not yet reached the level of divine beasts. They cannot comprehend the law independently. 2.5 can only subtly be fed back by the laws of Chen. Han comprehension of the law has already reached the peak strength of a third-level beast, and Gyarados' comprehension of the law is equivalent to a legendary level. The gods and beasts are all resting. Han and the others also felt drowsy, and it lay at Chen's feet. Pikachu and Celebi jumped into Chen's arms. Gyarados watering fruit trees in a crop garden. Okay, the important task of irrigation is handed over to Gyarados, who said that he is the weakest Pokémon under Chen. Chen rubbed Pikachu and Celebi, leaned on the recliner, and closed his eyes, enjoying the warm sunshine. Sabrina was also sitting on the reclining chair a little behind, watching this picturesque scene with a smile on her lips, feeling unprecedentedly peaceful in her heart. This island really seems to have a magic power. My master is really a hidden expert. Suddenly, soaring in the sky darkened, blocking the sun. Chen was taken aback. Is it going to rain? He opened his eyes, looked at soaring in the sky, opened his mouth slightly. His eyes were dull. FK, what a big, silly dragon. Chapter 57. Han, is this your daddy? The entire small lake in the center of the island was shrouded in shadow. At first, Chen thought it was cloud passing by. But when he saw the huge figure of that trash and soaring in the sky, his pupils dilated slightly, and he blurted out, "I'll go, what a big, stupid dragon." In soaring in the sky, a huge dragonite stagnated in the air. The eyes looked like two suns normal size. At first, Chen thought that his Han was the same as the golem last time and had undergone a gigantic transformation, but this was not his Han. The opponent's body has black rune. Excitement flashed in the eyes of the ultra-ancient dragonite. Wong finally summoned himself. Wong is here. Its eyes focused on the dragonite at Chen's feet. King. While excited, it can't control its emotions a little bit, and its momentum is exposed. The gods and beasts who closed their eyes to feel the law felt its breath and opened their eyes. Guladon and Kyogre looked at the ultra-ancient dragonite with surprise on their faces. This form of dragonite has not been seen for tens of thousands of years. Since the Great Change in 2009, there has been no such form of Pokémon. Seeing this at a glance, I really miss it a bit. In that era, almost all Pokémon were of this size and had mysterious runes on their bodies. It was a wild era, and all Pokémon were fighting, and it was also in that era that it fought the most fiercely with that stinky fish. However, since the world changed, all Pokémon have been hit hard, and no Pokémon has been able to maintain its gigantic form since then. Even they, who have the authority of heaven and earth, have been hit hard. Ordinary Pokémon have lost their gigantic bodies. As mythical beasts, they're not minimized like ordinary Pokémon. They can also maintain their gigantic bodies, seemingly unchanged, but in fact they have also been severely injured. Although they can become huge now, they're not what they were originally. Guladon still remembered that his original appearance was stronger than now and much more powerful, and his current strength was not the strength of his peak period. That inexplicable change in the world, the law violently rioted, stripped part of the power in its body, and turned it into a crimson orb. I didn't know that the bead was taken away. It searched for a long time, but couldn't find it. Only when you find that bead is it truly at its peak. The form of the stinky fish is not its real form either. Part of its power has been stripped and turned into a cyanwood-colored orb. When Groudon recalled, whoop, the huge body of the super ancient dragonite began to descend, trying to land on the island. The wings incited the airflow, causing a huge wind pressure, flying sand and rocks on the island, and the trees trembling. The Pokémon on the island were terrified and exuded fear. I'm going. Han, is this your daddy? Tell him not to come down. If he does, our lake and house will be gone. Also, your daddy scared the Pokémon on the island. Chen frowned. Han looked dazed. What is my daddy? Looking at the guy on soaring in the sky, I don't know him. Feeling the fear of Pokémon on the island, and once this ultra-ancient dragonite lands on the island, everything around this small lake will simply disappear. Feel the dissatisfaction of the master. Groudon and Kyogre moved. Crimson light surged. The cyan-wood-colored light flickered on Kyogre's body. The two immediately released their aura. All of a sudden, the magma roared in the eyes of the ultra-ancient Dragonite, and the sea rolled. The body of the super-ancient Dragonite was stagnant in the air, not daring to move. It sees Guladon and Kyogre on the ground, although their size is minimized. But as an ultra-ancient Dragonite who has lived from ultra-ancient times to the present, he still recognized it at a glance. Those two demon kings, the two demon kings who split the continent and divided the entire ocean into several seas. In the ultra-ancient period, synonymous with horror. Why are they here? Ultra-ancient Dragonite PD. That is their king, an existence that they dare not mess with. What should we do now? The super-ancient Dragonite panicked. Should it go down or take off again? At this moment, it felt a mysterious breath coming from its mind. Here's how to minimize. This is also because the super-ancient Dragonite has no killing intent. If there is a killing intent, this matter will not be so easy to talk about. The super-ancient Dragonite realized something. Then his eyes froze, the laws of his whole body shrank, and then condensed its size is rapidly minimizing. Although it is still quite big, it is a full 5 meters high. Because it is only the pinnacle of a third-level beast, its grasp of the laws is not as calm as a first-level beast, and it has done its best to turn it into a size of 5 meters. The ultra-ancient Dragonite flew down. He glanced at Guladon and Kyogre with some trepidation, and he was relieved when he saw that the two demon kings had continued to rest, but also a little puzzled. Didn't these two demon kings fight when they met? What did it get so good? Immediately afterwards, it looked excitedly at the bewildered Han-Han-Long. On Han-Han-Long's forehead, a black jade pattern appeared. Real. Truly a king. Excited to take a few steps forward. Roar. Han-Han-Long was a little taken aback. Who is this? I don't even think it's those coquettish sluts from Dragon Island. Han-Han-Long, is that your daddy? Chen asked. Han-In 377's faucet shakes like a wave drum. The super-ancient Dragonite yelled at soaring in the sky, and immediately more than 30 Dragonites flew down and landed on the lawn. For a time, the entire lawn was full of Dragonite. Chen was a little confused. There are so many silly dragons. So, Han-Han-Long's people came to look for it. Ho ho, the king please return to his throne. The super-ancient Dragonite shouted. Chen heard the meaning of the super-ancient Dragonite's roar. Are you taking Han-Han-Long home? He looked at Han-Han-Long, feeling a little uncomfortable. Han-Han-Long was the one who had been with him the longest, and also the one who had brought him the most fun. Han-Han-Long wanted to leave. He was really reluctant. Your family is here, so go with them. Chen looked down, and Han-Han-Long's family came to tell him to go back, so he had to let him go. Han-Han-Long is in a hurry. It doesn't know who these Dragonites are, and it doesn't even think about leaving its master by itself. It roars at the super-ancient Dragonite. Wow, I don't know you, get out of here. It rushed over, just as it was about to punch this ultra-ancient Dragonite. At this time, soaring in the sky suddenly dimmed, and I couldn't see my fingers, and night fell in an instant. Guladon and Kyogre looked up at soaring in the sky again. This day, so many people come. Their eyes narrowed. Why is this guy here? Chapter 58. Luna come, 3 first-level gods collide. Look at the ultra-ancient Dragonite after minimize. Chen thought to himself, sure enough, it is the same as the previous golem. What kind of gigantic transformation has occurred? Cynthia said that there is a time limit for gigantic transformation. It should be time, and it will automatically return to its original form. But looking at the old father-like eyes of the super-ancient Dragonite, the eyes are like a father who has lost his child. After years of searching, he finally found his child. He was a little depressed. It was really Han-Long's family who came pick him up. Roar! The super-ancient Dragonite growled excitedly at Han-Han-Long. King, you are finally back. Han-Han-Long looked at the Dragonite, which he didn't know at all, and heard that the master wanted to follow it. It got anxious and roared directly at the super-ancient Dragonite. I really don't know you. What the hell is the king? You misunderstood the dragon. Just when I wanted to have a Dragonite theory with this mistaken dragon. Soaring in the sky, suddenly darkened. There is not even a trace of transition. The last second was still daytime, and in the blink of an eye, it has already come to night. I'm going. What's the matter? This series of events made Lu Chen's mind a little bit dizzy. He looked up at soaring in the sky, and the endless darkness swallowed everything. Soaring in the sky seems to have installed a black curtain. The curtain began to pull, and the day was swallowed up by the night bit by bit. The stars twinkle in soaring in the sky. It's only noon, but already it's like normal night. Countless stars dotted the night, and the moonlight shone down, making it look strange and holy. Lu Chen saw that there was a Pokémon in soaring in the sky. This Pokémon looks like a bat, with a golden moon on the outside of its wings and its translucent chest, as if a small universe is condensed inside. Lu Chen looked at the distance of the island. In the distance, the red sun was still hot, and the sun was pouring down on the sea. The island alone is in the dark. It seems that it should be the ability of this Pokémon. Does this Pokémon have the ability to turn day into night? Seeing that this bat-like Pokémon can turn day into night, he just felt a little miraculous, and he didn't feel too surprised, because many Pokémon seem to have the ability to change the weather and the venue. Gyarados can turn sunny, soaring in the sky into rain. There are also some Pokémon on the island that can make soaring in the sky drop hail. Others can disperse heavy rain and make the sun even more violent. So this ability to change the weather is not too magical. Lu Chen just didn't expect that there's also a skill that can change night and day. The bat Pokémon stagnated in the air, looking down at the star and moon god tree next to the small lake. At this time, under the cover of night, the Xingyue god tree is even more extraordinary. It pulls the moonlight and starlight in the sky, and the starlight mist flows out continuously, and the entire small lake is full of starlight, with each swallowing. It seems that there is an illusion, the stars in the starry sky, as if brighter. This bat Pokémon is staring at Star Moon God Tree. It is this thing that is attracting it. It has a fatal attraction. As the little tree was swallowing, it felt that the stars in the tiny universe in its core were cheering, and that as long as it stayed by the little tree's side, it would be of great benefit. It was about to land. Next second, it stopped the figure, because there are two Pokémon eyeing it. Guladon and Kyogre stare at the bat Pokémon in soaring in the sky, which has actually flown all the way here. From the looks of it, it was attracted by the Master's Star Moon God Tree. Lunala, known as the Luna Pokémon. It is normal to be attracted by the Master's Star Moon God Tree. After all, the vision caused by this tree is related to the starry sky. Lunala also recognized Guladon and Kyogre. There was no sign of it. The three Pokémon seemed to agree on normal at the same time. Boom! The law is mixed with spiritual power to vent. The confrontation begins. Suicune, Inti, and Raikou stared at soaring in the sky with wide eyes. This scene can only be glimpsed by Pokémon who have stepped into the realm of beasts and can freely use the laws. This is a confrontation at the level of laws. In soaring in the sky, three forces erupted. In the eyes of the three holy beasts, horrific star power erupted from Lunala, Moon God, and there were patches of star seas emerging behind it, and the stars were spreading and shining brightly. It's as if the entire universe is condensed behind it. As for Lunala, her body began to distort, as she turned into a black hole, stretching across the sea of stars, devouring all the power of the moonlight and stars. The soaring in the sky above Guladon's head suddenly turned red, and a crimson continent stretched between the sky and the earth. Inside the continent, there were countless huge volcanoes. Volcano erupted, and all the eyes were hot and flowing magma. The magma flowed, and the continent continued to expand outward. Soaring in the sky behind Kyogre's head, the boundless sea emerges, and the tsunami rolls over, engulfing everything. Boom! The three collided violently. In an instant, the entire soaring in the sky is a tripartite confrontation. The black light, the crimson light, and the cyanwood light compete with each other. Black holes want to swallow everything. Magma wants to incinerate everything. Oceans want to drown everything. The three holy beasts stared, watching the confrontation between the three soaring in the sky in horror. This is not just a confrontation of laws. It has also involved the confrontation of theocracy the confrontation between the powers of heaven and earth. The ultra-ancient Dragonite was almost scared to pee. It has already reached the peak of the third-level beast, so it is natural to be able to see the vision and soaring in the sky. Do you three know each other? Chen blinked and blinked, looking at the three people with big eyes and small eyes. Because he couldn't see the confrontation of the three first-level gods in terms of momentum, and he couldn't see the vision shown by the law. In Chen's eyes, he can only see Guladon, Kyogre, and the Lunala Pokémon. The three of them stared at each other affectionately. The moment Chen spoke, the three first-level gods who were confronting each other felt the fierce bombardment of a monstrous and huge wave. Destroy. No, it should be said that it was like a terrifying existence that accidentally crushed an ant to death. That terrifying existence didn't even know that it had crushed the ant to death. Well, they're the ants. The vision produced by the confrontation shattered like a bubble. Oops, the master won't be angry. Kyogre and Guladon panicked. It's all because they were delighted to see the hunter and wanted to compete with each other, keeping their master in the back of their minds. Slipped away. The two slipped away guiltily. Chen feels inexplicable. What is he doing? No more friends? Chen looked at Lunala. Lunala swallowed hard, and almost all the stars in her core became extremely dim, and she didn't even dare to shine the light. Because it sensed that Chen was the one who shot just now. Looking at the terrifying laws around Chen, his scalp was numb, and every law suffocated him. No wonder there are small trees that attracted here. It turned out that it was planted by such a terrifying existence. It seemed that the mysterious little tree that made it extremely covet had no chance with it, and it felt a little uncomfortable. It flew all the way from Alola, but it did not expect this to be the result. Are you friends with Kyogre and Groudon? Chen asked. Lunala flew down tremblingly. Hearing this terrifying existence's question, it didn't know how to answer. Friends. Know each other, yes. Should be considered friends, right? It nodded. It turns out that these two weak chickens have friends, so you can stay here. The terrifying existence spoke. Lunala was taken aback. Don't worry, you, Solation, can stay here for as long as you want, and you can leave at any time before you leave. Chen added another sentence. It's not a scam, is it? Lunala couldn't believe it, and then looked at Groudon, who was playing dead on the stone, and Kyogre, who was dead in the lake. They're not afraid of these two. What are you afraid of? It flew directly under the star moon god tree. Lunala was shrouded in the mist of starlight from the star and moon god tree. In an instant, he felt extremely comfortable all over his body. The stars in my heart were cheering, and the starlight on Lunala and the starlight from the star and moon god tree complemented each other. Seeing the addition of another little friend, Chen lamented that there are more and more Pokémon on the island. Sabrina, who had been dumbfounded for a long time, finally came to her senses. She stared blankly at Lunala lying under the star and moon god tree. As a psychic girl, as the owner of the psychic department, her favorite is psychic Pokémon. So it took a long time to collect information about psychic Pokémon. Her dream is to one day be able to subdue a supernatural beast. But with the passage of time and knowing how terrifying the beasts are, her dream changed into cultivating her own Pokémon of the beast level. So, this bat-shaped Pokémon she recognizes. Lunala, the mega beast known as the moon god. My master said a few words and stayed on the island? What did the beast become so easy to fool? And she looked at Groudon on the rocks and Kyogre in the water, the Pokémon that Lunala could call friends. Needless to say, at least it is an existence of the same level as it. 2 mega beasts? In addition to Luna, there are 3 mega beasts on this ordinary island? Sabrina's eyes were dull, thinking that it was enough for the 3 holy beasts to follow the master. Who would have thought that this was just the tip of the iceberg? Now, even if her master tells her that he created the world, Sabrina will firmly believe it. My own master, who the hell is he? On the other side, the ultra-ancient Dragonite has also finished communicating with Han Hanlong. I learned that my king wants to stay here. The ultra-ancient Dragonite glanced at the three bosses with some fear. It chose to follow the king's wishes, and the king's wishes were the reason for its existence. Moreover, even the three first-level beasts are willing to stay on this island. It had a brain twitch to let Wong leave. It cautiously growled at Lu Chun, not daring to speak loudly. The person who can make three first-level beasts and three third-level beasts follow him is a normal person? So you didn't take Han Hanlong away. You want to stay here. Lu Chun understood what the other party meant, and he also understood that this was not Han Hanlong's father, but his clan. The ultra-ancient Dragonite nodded. Lu Chun was delighted. Zhao Zhao's would be fine if he didn't take away Han Hanlong, but Drew would be very reluctant to take it away. There are too many of you, so let you live on the east coast of the island. Lu Chun said, if so many Dragonite live near a small lake, it will look very crowded squeeze. The ultra-ancient Dragonite nodded and flew away with a group of Dragonites to the east coast of the island. Everything is settled. Lu Chun let out a long sigh of relief, and finally everything was done. I can finally sit comfortably and salt fish for a while. But this is just sitting down. White light shines from inside the cabin. Lu Chun was taken aback. What's the matter? He turned his head to look, and it was the Pokémon egg he had brought out from the ancient cave on the island before, which was emitting white light at this time. He was a little surprised. He had forgotten about the egg. The system rewarded an incubator before, and he threw the egg into it, so nothing happened. Lu Chun thought they were all dead eggs. After all, these eggs were at least thousands of years ago, or even 10,000 years ago. They haven't hatched for tens of thousands of years, so they probably won't hatch. Lu Chun didn't pay attention to it and placed it on the wooden table as a decoration. Unexpectedly, a white light was lit at this time. It can still hatch. He was a little curious. This might be an egg from 10,000 years ago what hatched out, just when he was full of expectations. Ding! Urgent task release. The mechanical sound of the system suddenly appeared. Lu Chun was taken aback for a moment, then examined carefully, frowning deeply. Locked 4,000 words. Finally came out this 4,000 words I will not divide chapters. Chapter 59. Larvitar of Black. The tragic end of the Dragon House. Lu Chun stared carefully at the sudden urgent task that the system came up with. Ding! It is detected that the host Pokémon egg is hatching, but because the Pokémon egg has been placed for tens of thousands of years, the egg has been petrified, and the nutrition inside is not enough. Please inject energy into the host in time, otherwise, the Pokémon will die middle. In addition to supplying energy, the host cannot take the initiative to help its shell smash. The stronger the energy provided by the host, the greater the Pokémon's future potential. Look at the description of the system. Lu Chun still underestimated the age of this egg. He thought that his guess of nearly 10,000 years was exaggerated, but he didn't expect the real year to be tens of thousands of years. An egg that hasn't hatched for tens of thousands of years is too unbelievable. At this time, the whole egg is constantly emitting white light. The egg was shaking violently. This white light is like a breathing light. It is on and off, but the hatching shell smash has not been seen for a long time. The whole egg is constantly expanding and then shrinking, just like the Pokémon inside is constantly trying to break the eggshell, but due to congenital deficiencies and after tens of thousands of years, the eggshell has been petrified, and the Pokémon inside is not at all not enough for shell SMA. Oh, come out. The Pokémon egg was shaking violently, but there was still nothing to do. Half a minute passed quickly. The white light on the Pokémon egg has gradually weakened. Once the white light finally disappears, it means failure, and the unhatched Pokémon inside will die. However, I can feel that the Pokémon inside that I have never met is still not giving up. Lu Chun is in a hurry. It's been tens of thousands of years. It would be a pity if it just disappeared like this. But how to add nutrition? Lu Chun took the Pokémon eggs out of the incubator and put them on the lawn at the door of the wooden house. Shalebi, pick me a vermilion fruit. Shalebi picked a vermilion fruit, and Lu Chun put it next to the Pokémon egg, close to the 930 spirit egg. Suddenly, the entire Zhu Gua became shriveled, as if its energy had been violently swallowed by something. Lu Chun was overjoyed. Quick, pick all the berries. Han Hanlong and Scyther began to sweep the crop garden. In all the crop gardens, all the fruits on the fruit trees rewarded by the system have been picked. The Pokemon egg is like a gold-swallowing behemoth, a bottomless pit, and all the berries are swallowed up as soon as it touches it, leaving only the shriveled skin. Next to the Pokemon egg, there are already piles of shriveled peels the size of a hill. The white light returned, after devouring all the berries. Boom, boom, boom. Inside the Pokemon egg, the sound of a heart beating can already be heard. Rich white ons drown the Pokemon eggs. There was a very small sound from the top of the Pokemon egg. But this small sound made Chen and Sabrina smile, which also means that they succeeded, and this Pokemon is about to come out of Shell Smash. As if remembering something, Chen reviewed the urgent task of the system. The stronger the energy given to Pokemon, the more immeasurable the potential of Pokemon in the future. He opened the system's backpack. A snow-white fruit, like a fruit carved from ice and snow, lay quietly in his hand. This is the fruit that was rewarded together with mysterious little tree in the previous system upgrade. It's called Shinxwigwo. Possesses the magical effect of allowing Ice-type Pokemon blood to evolve, and can also allow non-Ice-type Pokemon to have Ice-type attributes. That should be pretty good. Seeing more and more cracks on the eggshell, Pokemon is about to shell smash out. Without any further hesitation, he directly pressed the holy Shiwegwa on the body of the Pokemon egg. Intense white light floods the entire egg. Then the crackling sound continued. After half a minute, Yuki, there was a loud shout. The Pokemon, which has been sleeping in the Pokemon egg for tens of thousands of years, finally appeared and saw the world. Chen looked at the little guy carefully. His whole body was dark blue, but this blue was leaning towards dark black with horns on his head and ice crystal-like white tear stains under the eyelids of both eyes. Through the system's detection function, he also knew the name of this Pokemon, Larvitar. Yuki. Larvitar also knew who brought him into this world, so he called Growl affectionately to Chen, rubbing his cheek against Chen's pant leg. Chen picked it up. Tens of thousands of years, welcome to this world. Yuki, Larvitar nodded, eyes curled into crescents. Not far away, Groudon watched Larvitar hatch out of the Pokemon egg and nodded in relief. Finally, the owner has a ground Pokemon again. It cast a glance at Kyogre, Gyarados, Suicune. There are 3 in this water system. If this continues, the water system will become the only one. Oh, and forgetting the Dragonite population that is stationed on the east coast of the island, the water system is indeed dominant. The years are quiet. Time flies. For days have passed. For 4 days, the island refreshed. Sabrina sorted out the plan of the island, which worked great and became surprisingly orderly. Sabrina is also supernatural and directly asked Alakazam to purchase a convenient assembly house from Cerulean City and dismantled Chen's wooden house. It turned into a mansion of hundreds of square meters. Poor Alakazam has completely become a tool man, constantly flying between Cerulean City and islands. Fortunately, this world has developed space technology, similar to Pokeball technology, so many things can be placed in space packages. Otherwise, Alakazam would have to die of exhaustion. It is worth mentioning that Sabrina also gave Chen 10 apprenticeship gifts. A title deed. Chen was shocked when he saw the title deed was taken out. Love is still a rich woman? This whole island. Buy it if you say it? That's right. The gift she gave Chen as a teacher was the title deed of this island. Chen couldn't refuse this at all, because Sabrina said, "Don't, Ajad, accept her as an apprentice and drive him out of this island." After getting along with Chen for a few days, Sabrina also understands Chen. Although he is very powerful, even supernatural beasts are willing to actively follow him. But his temperament is very easygoing and approachable. That's why she dared to joke with Chen. In fact, she didn't realize that the number of times she laughed in just 4 days on this island was much more than all the previous times combined. This is an outdoor paradise. No worries, no worries. She is free here, and she doesn't need to beware of the rampant psychic. So, in order to avoid being kicked out, Chen also admitted Sabrina as an apprentice. But he also said that he doesn't know how to use psychic, so he can't teach Sabrina anything. Legally own the right to use the island. Chen also exercised his naming rights. The island also has its own name, Homeland. Well, the name of the island is Home. Home Island. Not contest, not elegant, even a little soft. But Chen just likes it. This is his home after he came to this world, and it is also the home of all Pokémon on this island. This is a home, a paradise for everyone. 2 flowers bloom, each representing a branch. Kanto. Yulongdu was in a trance. His face was unshaven. Having lost all of their peak strength, the Yulong family plummeted. Where there are people, there will be disputes. The families in Kanto are not in harmony. Because of the quasi-god Dragonite, the Yulong family has offended many families and established many enemies because of its strong attitude. Now, the Yulong family has lost power. These people can't wait to kick the Yulong family to death. Each big family has its own property. In less than 5 days, more than half of the Yulong family's property has been divided up. No reason. Because of strength, the real king. The most powerful combat power of the Yulong family is only at the elite level, and they are still newcomers to elite. How can such a level of combat power be able to defend the family business? The family elders who originally held high positions in the alliance were dismissed because they were not strong enough to convince the public. Because their subordinates are stronger than those of the Yulong family. So how can they convince the crowd? When the wall falls, people push it away, and when the tree falls, the monkeys scatter. The life of the Yulong family is extremely difficult, even to the group of Dratini whose ideas have already been dealt with. Even Yulongdu himself can't protect himself. Champion of Chengdu region, elite of Kanto region. Double titles, how high-spirited, but for the Kanto Alliance Elite Challenge the day after tomorrow, and a week later worry about the championship challenge. The day after tomorrow is the annual Kanto Alliance Elite Challenge, and a week later is the annual Chengdu Alliance Championship Challenge. If they lose, Yulongdu will no longer be the champion. But now, there is no trump card Dragonite. How to fight with others. Yulongdu's eyes are bloodshot. He has been tailwinding since he was born, and he has never experienced this. There is only one way to break the situation. Bring back the Dragonite. I will return those pets controlled by the ancient Dragonite. But in the vast sea, where can I find it? Yulongdu was walking by the sea, feeling a little dazed. The communicator rang, and he opened it to see that it was Professor Oak. The reason why he was able to retain the championship was also thanks to Professor Oak. Otherwise, he would have been banned long ago. For Professor Oak, he is very grateful. The Yulong family was in decline, and he didn't do much to help. Dude, it's okay. Come to my laboratory if you're bored. Cynthia just came. The day after tomorrow is the Elite Challenge. Next week is the Championship Challenge. You can compete with her to see if you can find a way to break the game. Cynthia? Yulongdu's eyes were dumbfounded, and a sentence that he had forgotten was circling in his mind. I advise you not to think of super ancient Dragonite. That one, you can't afford it. Cynthia knows where this ultra-ancient Dragonite is. His breathing became rapid for an instant. Throws a pokeball. Baijiao appeared, turned over, and sat on it. Quick, go to Professor Oak. Yulongdu's eyes were shining brightly, like a drowning person grasping at the last straw. Chapter 60. The Dragon Crossing's Plea, Sabrina and Cynthia. Every year, on the eve of the freshman trainer's departure, a series of challenges will be held. Every challenge also gives great expectations to the new trainers who are about to start. For Yulongdu, the most difficult thing is the championship challenge a week later. Without his own trump card Dragonite, he doesn't have a champion Pokémon in his hand, so it is impossible to defeat those challengers who have champion Pokémon. You know, if you want to challenge the champion, you must have a champion-level Pokémon. Dragonite is the natal Pokémon of the Yulong family, and the power of Yulong can increase the combat power and potential of Dragonite. For normal, a Dragonite, in the hands of the Yulong family, faces the same level, non-quasi-god Pokémon, and the attribute is not the absolute restraint of the fairy Pokémon. People from the Yulong family use the power of Yulong, and their Dragonite can do 1 against 3 at the same level. Even against quasi-gods of the same level in other regions, they can be restrained 1 by 1. A member of the Yulong family loses the Dragonite who grew up with him. and his strength is directly halved. Everyone who is detected to have the power to control the dragon will go to the dragon cave to pick a Dratini egg that is about to hatch. Then the two grew up together and had the same mind. That's why Yolongdu was so uncomfortable. What he lost was not only his champion Dragonite, but also the partners and family who had been with him since he was a child. But, except for the Chengdu Alliance Champions Challenge a week later, there is another difficulty waiting for him the day after tomorrow. Kanto's Elite Challenge. He has positions in both Chengdu and Kanto. The day after tomorrow is the Elite Challenge in Kanto and the Championship Challenge in Chengdu a week later. He wasn't afraid of the Elite Challenge the day after tomorrow, although I said I lost my trump card Dragonite. But Dragon Fairy has 5 other Pokémon besides its own trump card Dragonite. All 5 of them are from the beginning to the peak of the Elite level. Logically speaking, he wasn't too afraid of the Elite Challenge the day after tomorrow. In previous years, no challenger dared to challenge him because he was too strong. But this year, he is probably the one who has been challenged the most. He also received news that those families that were in a hostile contest condition with the Yulong family would send the trainer they supported to challenge him. They want Yolongdu to lose face in the entire Kanto continent. So, in fact, the most important thing is the Elite Challenge the day after tomorrow. As soon as the Chengdu Alliance knew, I had never even played the Elite Challenge. Needless to say, the Championship Challenge doesn't need to be held. They will be eliminated directly. Bai Jiao swiftly passed, soaring in the sky. Soon, Pallet Town is here. We landed at the entrance of the laboratory of Professor Oak in the back mountain. Yolanda walked in. "What about Professor Oak?" He said to Professor Oak's assistant in the laboratory. "Professor is researching new topics in the laboratory. Is Cynthia here too?" "Where is she?" Yolongdu asked impatiently. "Miss Cynthia is in the backyard." Yolongdu took 3 steps in parallel and walked toward the backyard. In the backyard, Cynthia is playing with the Pokémon in the backyard and helping to feed the energy cubes. Sinnoh region is already busy. There is no need to play the Championship Challenge this year because no one dared to challenge her this year and no one submitted a challenge application. What the hell, Legendary Garchomp. Their Pokémon are not enough to beat them. After dealing with Noldo's affairs and not needing to play the Championship Challenge, Cynthia finally had time to relax. Next is the day when the freshman trainer starts, so there is nothing wrong with her being the champion. So she took half a month's leave and flew to Kanto right away. She wants to go to Mr. Liu Chen's island, which is the most relaxing and the best resort in the world. The beasts can be seen there casually, and there is no resort that has this kind of treatment. However, because my grandfather has made new progress in the study of Pokémon, he asked Cynthia to help bring the data and experimental subjects. She was asked to help submit it to Professor Oak, so she came to Professor Oak's laboratory first. "Go to Mr. Liu Chen's island tomorrow." "Cynthia." Suddenly, the Taoist voice came over. Cynthia looked over and saw Yolongdu with a beard and hair as messy as a chicken coop. The other party's eyes were bloodshot, and it seemed that he hadn't had rest for several days. Looking at the unkempt Yolongdu, Cynthia was also a little startled. If she hadn't known Yolongdu, and the friendship between the two was pretty good, she wouldn't have dared to recognize it. Is this still the high-spirited Yolongdu who always pays attention to his own image? She shook her head. Cynthia also knew why the other party became like this. "I just heard about the situation of the Yulong family from Professor Oak. Regarding this situation, she has nothing to say." Out of friendship, she had already reminded her. "That day, when I talked on the phone, during the call you said." He paused. Do you know the origin of the super ancient Dragonite?" Yulongdu's eyes burst out with hope. This is the last hope, and he was afraid that he would not hear the answer he wanted from Cynthia's mouth. If it doesn't work anymore, the Yulong family will really decline. Cynthia sighed. "I reminded you that day." Yulongdu's eyes lit up, and he didn't deny it, which meant that Cynthia really knew. Yolongdu hurriedly said, "Where's the one you talked about? Can you take me there? As long as we can return our Dragonite, our Yulong family is willing to apologize and pay all the price." Cynthia apologized. That one's existence, without his permission, I dare not reveal it easily." Whether the ultra-ancient Dragonite is related to him, I'm not sure, but I personally guess that it should be related to him. I can't give you an answer if it's right or not. Yolongdu begged with a face full of pleading. Then can you help me go and see if the super ancient Dragonite is related to him? Cynthia was a little confused, not because she didn't want to help, but because she didn't want to trouble Mr. Chen. Well, I can only help you find out if the super ancient Dragonite is related to that person. If it is related to him, I can only speculate to see if he forgives you and is willing to return the Dragonite. If the ultra-ancient Dragonite has nothing to do with that person, then I'm sorry I can't help you. This also means that your Dragonite will never be found. That's all right. That's all right. Yulongdu was afraid that Cynthia would repent, so he hurriedly said. Early the next morning, Cynthia says goodbye to Professor Oak. 0. Seeking flowers. In order to wait for her news, Yolongdu is also waiting at Professor Oak. Moreover, he can't give up. Tomorrow is the Elite Challenge, and he has to prepare for it. If he loses his elite position, then the Yulong family will become more and more difficult. Garchomp flying over the sparkling sea. Cynthia was in a good mood, and finally she was able to go to that magical island again, and she wondered if she could touch those beasts this time. Recalling the phone call between herself and her best friend Diantha last night, Diantha's envious and jealous tone made her smile. Originally, the two made an appointment to come together, but Carlos Alliance had a task for Diantha, and she couldn't leave. About an hour later, a lush island appeared at the end of the field of vision. Arrived. The magical island she has been thinking about has arrived. She flew towards the center of the island. Surprisingly, I found that the changes on the island are very large. The island seems to have been specially planned. It is divided where is the place where Pokémon play, where is where to eat together, and where is the private domain of the island owner. Everything on the island is full of a sense of beauty. Everything is orderly and well organized. And the wooden house is gone, replaced by a luxurious modern manor. Compared with the past, it is fundamentally an earth-shaking change. If she hadn't been sure that this was Mr. Liu Chen's island, she would have thought she had come to the wrong place. At this time, a golden streamer jumped up from the ground with a fierce momentum. Garchomp. Garchomp understood. Clang, there was a sound of collision. Only then did Cynthia realize that it was an alakazam. Humans, this is a private domain. Please leave immediately. Alakazam's spiritual power surged, and a voice sounded in Cynthia's mind. Cynthia froze. Is it a new Pokémon on Mr. Liu Chen's island? Otherwise, how could you not know yourself? Immediately leave. Alakazam once again sent the intention of expulsion, and the master said that if anyone dared to come to the island, he would be driven out. The master said that the master's master doesn't like to be disturbed, and there are too many secrets on this island, which cannot be known to outsiders. Seeing that the other party still did not leave, Alakazam confusion gushed out, and the two spoons in his hand surged with white light, and finally merged into a long spoon. Cynthia narrowed her eyes slightly. Normal Alakazam, this kind of superpower Pokémon, wraps itself in confusion and can fly, but it is definitely not as calm and fast as this Alakazam. As far as she knew, the only one in the entire Kanto who could do this was that woman. Cha-Cha. Scyther heard the movement and spoke to Alakazam. Alakazam nodded. Sorry, I didn't know you were a friend of Master Liu Chen. The white light of the big spoon flickered and turned into two small spoons again. Cynthia flew forward and landed at the gate of the manor. At this moment, a beautiful girl with black and long straight just came out from the manor. Is it you? X2 Inch the two spoke in unison. Cynthia frowned slightly. It was really this woman. Sabrina looked at Cynthia carefully. Why did this woman come here? Did who not stop her? The two looked at each other. In an instant, the void seemed to be colliding with Ember. Hey, Chapter 61. Han Long. Find that be de-retaliate. Let's fight. The eyes of the two women met, and in an instant, the air was filled with the smell of gunpowder. Why are you here? Cynthia asked. What happened during this time? Why is this woman here? Why can't I be here? Sabrina snorted coldly. I still want to ask you. Why did you come to my house? After finishing speaking, she glared at Alakazam. You two have already said that this is a private property. Don't let outsiders in. Look at you, let all cats and dogs in. What if things on the island are stolen? Alakazam looks aggrieved. Can you blame me? Yeah. This has become your island? This is obviously Mr. Liu Chen's island. Why? Although I don't know why you appear on this island, but someone is too shameless to call himself the master. The two women compete against each other. Sorry, Mr. Liu Chen you're talking about is my master. On my master's island. Is there anything wrong with me calling myself the master? Hearing this answer, Cynthia was taken aback and couldn't care less about arguing with the other party. Apprentice? Mr. Liu Chen accepted this vile woman as an apprentice. Cynthia and Sabrina had a festive time. That was when Cynthia was not yet a champion. She was traveling in the Kanto region. One time, the psychic in Sabrina went berserk and directly destroyed a certain forest in the Kanto region. Let countless Pokémon lose their homes. Cynthia's battalion 347 was also stationed in the forest. On that day, she was taking Garchomp for special training at the waterfall in the distance. After the special training, after returning, she saw the completely destroyed forest, her camp, as well as supplies and daily necessities, and none of them survived. Then she sees Sabrina from Smelling Salts and Rampage, and she asks Sabrina, "Who did this?" Sabrina said straight up that she did it herself. She didn't bother to explain, and she didn't bother to explain. Since she was a child, she has been surrounded by the cold eyes and curses of countless people, so she didn't explain anything. After, a fight broke out between Cynthia and Sabrina. The two were tied. After that time, the relationship between the two ended like this. The image of Sabrina in Cynthia's heart has also become synonymous with bad deeds. This kind of person is just beautiful, but vicious like a snake in his heart. For lash out, the entire forest was destroyed. Such a woman with bad morals and bad deeds actually became Mr. Liu Chen's student? She couldn't believe it. Where's Mr. Liu Chen? I don't believe he will accept you as an apprentice. Cynthia said, how could such an upright person like Mr. Liu Chen have such a student? Scyther, tell this woman if what I said is true. Sabrina said to Scyther, who was waving a scythe outside the yard. What? Scyther nodded at Cynthia. Cynthia's sluggish hull beetle can't lie to itself. So why is he an apprentice? So, if you have anything to do with my master, please tell me, and I will pass it on. Sabrina raised her head like a victorious little hen. She's happy to see Cynthia deflated. Looking at the complacent Sabrina, Cynthia gritted her teeth with hatred. Hey, Cynthia, are you here? Liu Chen's voice came from behind. It's just in time. Let me introduce you. This is my student Sabrina. Liu Chen pointed Cynthia again and said, Sabrina, this is Cynthia. Sabrina showed a sweet smile. Master, we have known each other just now, right, Sister Cynthia? We had a good chat just now. Cynthia looked at Sabrina, feeling that the other person's smile was mocking her. She nodded depressedly. Yes, Mr. Liu Chen. I'll get tea and pastries. Sabrina obediently walked into the manor. Sit down then, Cynthia. Liu Chen pointed to the small courtyard in the manor yard. The entire manor is built around the central lake. Because of the Xingyue God tree, Liu Chen also named the central lake Xingyue Lake. The gate of the manor faces Xingyue Lake, and the small yard of the manor is just outside the gate. The small yard was turned into a garden by Sabrina Decorate, and many flower beds were planted. Sabrina came back soon with tea and snacks. Eat, Sister Cynthia. Here are the snacks and milk tea I made for Master today, Sabrina deliberately bit the word Master. Cynthia's teeth itched immediately. This hateful woman has two faces. Mr. Liu Chen must have been deceived by her. Although Cynthia would like to directly expose Sabrina's evil deeds to Mr. Liu Chen. But she can't because she is no longer a child and reports everything, and she has no close relationship with Mr. Liu Chen. She is just an outsider. And Sabrina is his student who is closer to him. I am suing Mr. Liu Chen against his students. Isn't this the same as going to other people's parents, speaking ill of their children, and belittling the other's children? And I have no evidence to prove that accusing Sabrina for no reason will only make Mr. Liu Chen dissatisfied with himself. This is something that people with no emotional intelligence will do. looking at Sabrina, who popped out the word master from time to time and kept showing off to herself. Cynthia felt blown away. She must let this woman show her foxtail in front of Mr. Liu Chun. She said, "Mr. Liu Chun, this time I will rest for half a month. Can I stay with you?" Liu Chun was taken aback for a moment, and then smiled lightly. "Okay, the new house is very big. There are many empty rooms. You and Sabrina seem to hit it off right away, and Sabrina just happens to be together." The smug smile on Sabrina's face froze. "This woman, do you want to stay?" She forced a smile and said, "Yes, yes, master. It would be great if Sister Cynthia would stay." "Sister Cynthia, let me show you the rooms. There are many rooms here, and there are various styles. You can see which one you like between." "Okay." The two walked into the manor with hold hands in hand. The moment you walk in, the performance of the two suddenly changed. "Cynthia, what the hell are you doing? Are you staying here?" "All right, Sinnoh champion. Come here to experience farm life." Sabrina asked. "Yeah, what's wrong?" "What? Are you guilty? Are you afraid?" "Sure enough, you have deceived Mr. Liu Chun with your rhetoric." Cynthia said, "Don't worry. In these 15 days, I will reveal your true colors and let Mr. Liu Chun see your true colors. You can destroy the entire forest for your own selfish desires and make countless Pokémon homeless. I don't know if Mr. Liu Chun, who loves nature and cares for Pokémon very much, will be disappointed in you." Sabrina didn't speak or explain. There was no need to explain to an outsider. She never cared what others thought of her. She snorted coldly. The two walked out again. The good sister mode is restored again. How about it? Are you looking forward to it? My room was chosen next door to Sabrina's sister. Cynthia said, "That's great." Liu Chun nodded. This time it was Sabrina's turn to be sullen. This stinking woman actually wants to stay. Cynthia is in a good mood and can finally live in this magical island for a while. East coast of the island. Ong ho ho, Han Han Long stood on a big rock, full of vigor. The ultra-ancient Dragonite stood a little below, a bit shorter than Han Han Long. At the bottom are more than 30 Dragonite. It is the Dragonite controlled by the bloodline of the super ancient Dragonite, abducted from the Yulong family. This is blood pressure. Just like the queen ants, she has absolute control over the worker ants. More than 30 Dragonites stood quietly. Han Han Long put his waist up, looked at the group of younger brothers, and felt very embarrassed my dragon actually has this day. It glanced at the ultra-ancient Dragonite below. Xindao, it seems that the Dragonite who misidentified the dragon is not useless. In the past 4 days, it has severely overwhelmed Wang's addiction. It turned out to be so cool. No wonder that BD in Dragon Island likes to give orders every time. It turns out that giving orders is such a pleasant thing. Suddenly, speaking of the BD in Long Zido, Han Han Long remembered that before that BD had people kick him out of the island and beat him up in groups. Call spit up 2 rough breaths from its nostrils. Although it was because it drove him out of the island, he was lucky enough to meet the owner. But this enmity must be avenged. The last time I went back, I wanted to beat it, but Han Han Long knew how much he was, so he couldn't beat it. Moreover, that BD doesn't even need to make a move. Just let his dragon beat up himself. It's different now. I have my own people too. It growled at the ultra-ancient Dragonite, described the past, but glorified itself. For example, being unilaterally hanged and beaten, it was replaced by the other party who couldn't beat me and asked someone to beat me up in groups. The ultra-ancient Dragonite had a fierce look on his face, and hostility emerged on his face. There is a Dragonite bullying the king. It is also found out in the past few days that the king has not fully recovered, and its strength is slowly recovering. Therefore, a lot of power and coercion of the king cannot be used. The ultra-ancient Dragonite himself determined that Han Han Long is the king only by relying on the summoning of the king's mark. Unexpectedly, when the king did not recover, there were Dragonites who bullied the king. Can't bear it. It growled. This revenge must be avenged, and those younger generations must be given an unforgettable memory. Han Han Long's eyes lit up. Let's fight. It also wants to besiege the BD on Dragon Island. Whoosh whoosh. One by one Dragonite soared into the sky and continued to fly across the sky of the island. And in 3.0 Dragon takes the lead. The ultra-ancient Dragonite followed closely behind, and the remaining 30 Dragonites lined up behind the ultra-ancient Dragonite. Han Hanlong glanced at the formation behind him and let out a low growl, as if giving an order. Immediately, the formation of the 30 Dragonites changed. Behind the ultra-ancient Dragonite lined up in the shape of, like an arrow. It was spectacular, Xingyue Lake, in the courtyard of the manor. When Lu Chun heard the movement, he looked at Han Hanlong speechlessly. What is this idiot doing? He likes to fly around in the sky with his own people every day when he has nothing to do. Cynthia looked at the Dragonites soaring in the sky, especially the Dragonite behind Han Hanlong, about 5 meters in size, with black runes on its body. Although the size has shrunk, this obvious feature can still be recognized at a glance. Her eyes were fixed, and she looked behind her, the 30 or so Dragonites. Really, sure enough, the ultra-ancient Dragonite is related to Mr. Lu Chun. I am a 5K party in the public period, and I am a 3K party in the VIP period. Each chapter is almost 3,500, so my 3 chapters are almost 1W words. Every day is a chapter in the afternoon, a chapter in the evening, a chapter in the morning, and a chapter in the morning there may be another chapter at 3 o'clock, and the daily guarantee is 1W words. If you have a clear mind, you may code until 3 o'clock in the morning, and the 4th chapter will be added. Chapter 62. Your body shape is also called atavism. Ultra-ancient Dragonite. Tell it what it means to be big. Although the size of a Dragonite turned into 5 meters. But the black tadpole-like runes that are unique to the super-ancient Pokémon and surround the whole body made Cynthia recognize it in a second. This is the ultra-ancient Dragonite. The more than 30 Dragonites behind him belong to the Yulong family. Sure enough, Diantha's guess was right. The ultra-ancient Dragonite would fly in a straight line, heading towards Mr. Lu Chun. Cynthia frowned and confirmed that the super-ancient Dragonite was on Mr. Lu Chen's island. She had a headache because she agreed to Yolanda's plea. If the super-ancient Dragonite was not there, she would feel no pressure, but now that it was confirmed, she didn't know how to ask for a moment. The super-ancient Dragonite is Mr. Lu Chen's Pokémon, who suddenly brought back 30 Dragonites. The ultra-ancient Dragonite will definitely explain the process to Mr. Lu Chun. There is no doubt about it, and the gods and beasts are all capable of spiritual dialogue. Mr. Lu Chun must have known that it was the Yulong family's delusion to subdue the ultra-ancient Dragonite, and the latter would directly control the Dragonite of the Yulong family and bring them back in a rage. She didn't know what Mr. Lu Chun thought of the Yulong family, whether he laughed at it, hated it, or ignored it at all. Cynthia hesitated. How should she speak? The promise of Yolangdu cannot be ignored. Her temperament is not easy to agree to others, and if she promises, she will definitely do it. For a long time, Lu Chun, Mr. Lu Chun, these Dragonite. She gritted her teeth and tried to speak when she was about to ask. These are the clansmen of Han Hanlong. They flew over suddenly 4 days ago to seek refuge with Hanhua, and now they're going crazy with Hanhua. There's a smile on the corner of Lu Chen's mouth. Han Hanlong is the Pokémon who has been with him the longest, and he's been with Lu Chen all the way since he had nothing. The previous wooden house was built by him and Hanhua 09. At that time, neither of them knew how to build it, and they looked confused. Build one and collapse the other. After sleeping in the cave for a long time, I figured out how to build a house. Seeing Han Hanlong being so crazy every day now, Lu Chun felt as if his child had found a playmate. Cynthia was slightly taken aback when she heard this answer. Then he breathed a sigh of relief. It turned out that it was not Mr. Lu Chen's Pokémon, but the Dragonite who came to join Mr. Lu Chen. The silly and cute Dragonite also appeared in Cynthia's mind. As expected of this Pokémon, he was able to attract the super ancient Dragonite to join him. In this way, Mr. Lu Chun doesn't know about the Yulong family's attack on the super ancient Dragonite. Moreover, returning the Dragonite of the Yulong family has become easier. As long as Han Hanlong is dealt with, let persuade the super ancient Dragonite to return the Pokémon of the Yulong family. For a moment, Cynthia felt relieved. Piku, Bibi, Yuki, there was a burst of pleasant laughter in my ears. In the distance, there are 3 Pokémon standing on the flat grass, majestic and handsome. There are 3 tiny Pokémon playing on their backs, and that's what makes them laugh. Cynthia was taken aback. 3 holy beasts? There was only one Suicune before, but it's only been less than half a month, and all 3 holy beasts have come to this island. And she looked towards the side of Xingyue Lake, where there was an unusually mystical small tree, which was constantly puffing out the mist of starlight. Under this magical little tree, there is a bat-like Pokémon with a golden moon outside the tail. There is a cluster of stars on the Pokémon's chest, like a microcosm of the entire universe. The starlight on the Pokémon and the starlight on the mysterious little tree are interacting with each other at a frequency. This Pokémon Cynthia has never seen before, and she might think that this Pokémon that has never been seen before may be a Pokémon unique to a region or a new species. But now, tuts! Cynthia also knew that this was in existence at the same level as Guladon and Kyogre. She was a little numb. Seeing another Mega Beast appeared, she was not as shocked as before. At most, she was, oh, there's another one. As for why sure, that's because she discovered the pattern. The closer the Pokémon is to the small lake, the stronger it is. Kyogre lay dead on the lake. Guladon rests on a large rock on the shore of a lake not far from the manor. This bat Pokémon nests under a mysterious tree planted next to the lake. The 3 of them occupy the inner circle. The 3 holy beasts are active in a circle outside the core circle. Gyarados Scyther again operates outside of their range. The island's non-Mr. Chen's Pokémon are regional events after Gyarados. Vaguely, there is a division of strength. Actually, the fact is exactly what Cynthia guessed. But Guladon, they do not occupy the core circle. Those who really occupy the core circle should be Hanhamlong, Celebi, Larvitar, and Pikachu. Hanhamlong is the one who has followed Chen the longest, and Guladon and the others dare not compete with Hanhamlong for favor. Hanhamlong is sleeping directly at the gate of Chen's manor. Sabrina also specially made a small house for it in the yard. As for Celebi, Larvitar, and Pikachu, because of their size and cuteness, they occupy the right time and place. At night, I want to sleep with Chen. Bibi, Yuki, Pikachu, the 3 little guys sat on top of the 3 holy beasts. The 3 holy beasts stand a line. Celebi pointed at Chen and gave an order, compare. Immediately, the 3 holy beasts jumped out and rushed towards Chen. Soon they came to Chen. Then the 3 little guys jumped off from the heads of the 3 holy beasts and ran into Chen's arms. Celebi lay on Chen's head. Pikachu sat on his shoulders. Larvitar sat in his arms. You 3 naughty bastards. Only the big dog, the second dog, and the third dog are willing to toss with you. Feed them a snack on the table. Their eyes suddenly bent into crescents. Yuki. Larvitar pinched Chen's drinking glass with both hands, and suddenly the ice condensed on the glass, and a cold air came out. Thank you, Larvitar. Help Cynthia ice it too. Chen rubbed Larvitar's head. Cynthia looked at it with some surprise. The complexion was dark blue Larvitar, and there were tears like ice crystals on the lower eyelid. Flash Larvitar. But shouldn't Larvitar be ground plus rock? Why can Larvitar use cold, air, and ice attribute? But thinking whose Pokémon it was, Cynthia felt relieved. Sabrina, it's time to clean up the weeds in the crop garden. If it's okay, you will clean it up. I have nothing to do. I'll clean up too. Cynthia said. Soon, Sabrina and Cynthia came to the crop garden to clear the weeds. Do you know what Hanhamlong likes? Cynthia asked Sabrina. Hanhamlong, you don't want to attract the attention of its clansmen, do you? Do you want to subdue it? TSK, the majestic champion of Sinnoh, actually covets the quasi-god of our Kanto. Sabrina said, what is Hanhamlong like? I know, but I won't tell you. Cynthia was out of breath. This woman, I shouldn't have asked her. Hanhamlong took a group of younger brothers and hurried across the sea. Soon, a huge fog appeared in front of him. Coming. It plunged into it, flying rapidly in the lost season. 10 minutes later, it suddenly opened up. A lush and isolated island appeared in front of my eyes. Dragon Island, Here we come. Originally, Han Hanlong wanted to fly over directly, but just now, it had a brilliant idea. Han Hanlong turned his head and growled at the super ancient Dragonite, conveying his thoughts. You wait for me here, hiding on the edge of the fog. The super ancient Dragonite nodded. After explaining, Han Hanlong spread his wings and flew directly to the sky of Dragon Island. Ung ho ho! It roared loudly, and the sound shook the sky, spreading throughout the entire island. The aura of its whole body is not hidden at all, and it is directly vented. This is a demonstration, or rather taunt. For a while, on the Dragon Island, there was a constant sound. Brush, brush, brush. The sound of flapping wings came, and densely packed Dragonite flew out from Dragon Island. This scene is incomparably spectacular. As far as the eye can see, they're all Kanto quasi-god Dragonite. All the Dragonites of Dragon Island surrounded Han Hanlong and stared angrily at them. It's that alien. It is said that it collapsed the inheritance cave of Dragon Island, but it still dares to come back and taunt. The Dragonite group split. A Dragonite that was 4 or 5 circles larger than the normal Dragonite came out, and the most striking thing was that there was a black tattoo appearing and disappearing above the ears on its body. Behind it were more than a dozen extremely powerful Dragonites. These dozen or so Dragonites are all legendary. The Dragonite leader stared at Han Hanlong unkindly. This Dragonite has obtained all the inheritance of the Dragon Cave, according to the rules that have been handed down from the Dragon Island. Whoever has obtained all the inheritance completely will be the king of Dragonite. Logically speaking, this should be called Gongon Dragon King. But this Dragonite leader is used to his current leader status and enjoys everything he has. It doesn't want to have an extra king on its head. Hey, destroyed the land of inheritance. You dare to come back in 070? The Dragonite leader growled at Han Hanlong. Ho ho, looks like the lesson I gave last time was not enough. The Dragonite leader roared at Han Hanlong, and at the same time, its eyes shone with a strange light. It didn't expect that this alien would dare to come back. Just right, since it has obtained all the inheritances, if I grab it myself, can I force it to find out the inheritances I have obtained? It ordered. Whoosh, more than 10 elite-level Dragonites surrounded Han Hanlong. Han Hanlong watched coldly and played gang fights again. This time I also have people, no dragons. Ung ho, Han Hanlong roared. Shoo. More than 30 yellow lights came quickly. Led by the super ancient Dragonite, they came to Han Hanlong's back and confronted the Dragonite leader tit for tat. The leader of Dragonite was taken aback for a moment. No wonder he dared to come back for the power trip. It turned out that he also brought people. It then sneered. A group of impure Dragonites from the outside world. The Dragonite of Dragon Island is the real pure blood Dragonite. But it feels that there are a few Dragonites in the outside world that meet the conditions and can be absorbed into the Dragonite. Island, grow stronger. Dragon Island is a sacred place for Dragonite. It believed no Dragonite could refuse. But I'd better show off my own strength first and defeat them. The Dragonite leader roared, and the tattoo on his ear exuded dark power. In an instant, the dark light flickered. Black's tattoo covered half of its face and extended to half of its neck. Its size is also expanding at this moment. In an instant, it came to 10 meters. Throwback form. Its unique ability. It despises a kind of Dragonite from the outside world, which is the attitude of Dragonite in the super ancient times, and it crushes all Dragonite in blood. Just when it was squeaking, Han Hanlong exhaled 2 rough breaths from his nose. This one, that's why you're here. Han Hanlong roared at the super ancient Dragonite. Tell it what it means to be big. The ultra-ancient Dragonite couldn't bear it long ago. A group of degenerate Dragonites dare to treat the king like this. Unforgivable. Unforgivable. The king is everything. The king is authority. The king is the god of the Dragonite family. It has red eyes, roared violently. Then the size rose rapidly. Chapter 63. The beaten Dragonite leader, Eevee's mutation. The ultra-ancient Dragonite was furious in his heart. The king's will is its raison d'etre. Wong is the god of the Dragonite family. A group of degenerate Dragonites dare to treat the king like this. Simply unforgivable. 10 meters high. Returning to the ancestors? Is this humiliating the Dragonite clan? The super ancient Dragonite roar sounded, and in an instant, the tadpole-like lines on its body glowed with a scarlet light, setting it off as a demon. In the shocked eyes of the Dragon Islands, the size of the ultra-ancient Dragonite is rapidly increasing. The body is raised up, breaking through the clouds. In the end, it completely recovered its original posture, which was extremely huge, like a mountain stretching between heaven and earth. It is more than 100 meters high. Like a demon, like a god, Megatron sang you. It looks down on the Dragonite of Dragon Island like a god. All the Dragonites in Long Zito are like little bugs, and the leader of Tion Migeo's Dragonites is just a little bigger mouse. Jump up and can't even hit the ultra-ancient Dragonite's knees. Look at the terrifying and ultra-ancient Dragonite. The leader of the Dragonite was already panicking. His eyes were full of horror and horror. His neck was sore looking up, and he could only see the opponent's stomach. The opponent can step on himself in a slag with one kick. It also knows the identity of this giant Dragonite. The Dragonite of the super ancient period, only in that period, would have a Dragonite with this posture. Why is there an ultra-ancient Dragonite in this era? Isn't it already extinct? The terrifying coercion of the ultra-ancient Dragonite permeated the entire sky of Dragon Island. The air trembled and the atmosphere condensed. Ultra-ancient Dragonite watches them. Ung-ho-ho! It roared at these Dragonites. The sound bombarded the air. The clouds were scattered. The sea trembled, and the air produced ripples. This ripple turned into a sonic attack and blasted towards Dragonite on Dragon Island. All of a sudden, like mosquito coils at work, these Dragonite act like mosquitoes. Soaring in the sky, Dragonite dumplings were dropped, which was very spectacular, falling straight from the sky towards the ground one by one. But there are still more than 10 Dragonites still standing in the air. When the super ancient Dragonite saw this, the dark tadpole lines on its body emitted a faint light, and the tadpole-like characters on its forehead were even quickly assembled and rearranged. Suddenly, more than a dozen Dragonites, including the Dragonite leader, trembled all over. They felt a throbbing from the blood, which was a kind of oppression from the suppression of the higher blood on their own blood. They are extremely uncomfortable, as if someone swung their brains with a giant hammer, and they seem to be carrying a mountain on their shoulders, and it is extremely difficult to even breathe. His body was shaking violently like sifting chaff. The ultra-ancient Dragonite was a little surprised. It has to be said that the Dragonites in Dragon Island are indeed much higher in terms of blood than the 30 or so Dragonites he has tamed. More than a dozen Dragonites headed by the Dragonite leader are even more outstanding. They were actually able to resist the control of blood vessels. But it's just resisting his bloodline control, and his authority is incomplete. If the king recovers, let alone them, I can't resist the king's control. However, the king is a good king. In the super ancient times, it never used blood control to control the tribe. It glanced at more than a dozen Dragonites that could only resist the control of its own blood. These Dragonites are also considered good seedlings. After some training, the body shape can also be restored to a semi-super ancient form. In the ultra-ancient period, it was a reckless era with extremely strict hierarchy, and it was also an era of chaos without order. Countless races are at war, and there is not a day when they are not fighting. At that time, the power of heaven and earth was divided among the gods and beasts. The Pokémon population also has authority, and the Pokémon who obtains the authority of these populations is the king of that race. The authority of heaven and earth endows the divine beasts with the priesthood, which produces exclusive skills, and the divine power over the things or items corresponding to the divine profession. Land. The priesthood determines the divine right. That is, the position determines the power. And the King of Kinds also produces exclusive skills. The exclusive skills possessed by the King of Dragonite are the exclusive skills, bloodline control. The king of the Dragonite family can control the Dragonite under his command. As for why the super ancient Dragonite has the blood skill that can only be used by a king, the ultra ancient Dragonite was a little depressed and glanced at Han Henlong, because it was the ability bestowed by the king before he died. But the king has come back, although minimized, but this is their king. This also shows that Wong succeeded. The super ancient Dragonite withdrew its blood pressure. The terrifying pressure on the Dragonite leader immediately receded and disappeared completely. They seem to be fished out of the sea, and the lotus body is full of cold sweat. Looking at the super ancient Dragonite's eyes full of horror. Looking at the Dragonite leader who used to be invincible in front of him. Now he is trembling in front of his little brother. Han Hanlong grinned and came up to the leader of Dragonite with a low growl. "Come on, let's fight in groups, and I'll let you go if you win." The Dragonite leader glanced at the super ancient Dragonite and let out an impatient growl. "With it, all of us can't beat it together. Relax, it won't be involved." Han Hanlong roared back. "How do you fight in groups? Our Dragonite. To fight your Dragonite, the rule is that you are not allowed to use any skills, only pure hand-to-hand combat." Han Hanlong growled to convey the message. The Dragonite leader's eyes flashed unbelievable. There are at least hundreds of Dragonites on Dragon Island. How many opponents are there? Only more than 30. If the ultra-ancient Dragonite didn't make a move, how could it be possible to beat the 30 versus hundreds? "Really?" It growled dubiously. "If you really win, let me go?" Han Hanlong nodded. The Dragonite leader was overjoyed, but the smile froze instantly at the corner of his mouth. Hurrah, the densely packed Dragonites took off, and the Dragonites from Dragon Island all came behind Han Hanlong. Densely packed, spectacular. On the contrary, on the side of the Dragonite leader, there are only Dragonites controlled by Shi Yuzhong who are not controlled by blood. Hundreds of Dragonite surrounded them. The scene instantly changed to hundreds of vs 10 or so. Han Hanlong gave the super ancient Dragonite a nice job look. Looking at the trembling Dragonite leaders huddled together, Han Hanlong smiled and told you to beat me up in groups. It waved its hand. Whoosh whoosh, countless Dragonite rushed up. The Dragonite leaders screamed and begged for mercy. At the end, a group of Dragonite leaders lay on the ground with black noses and swollen eyes. They also surrendered in the end, and surrendered to Han Hanlong's despotic power. After teaching the leader of Dragonite a lesson, Han Hanlong was very happy in his heart. It waved its hand. Return trip. Returning with more than 30 Dragonites. Home Island. Lu Chen leaned on the recliner, enjoying this peaceful time. Cynthia also touched the 3 holy beasts as she wished. Even Suakun, the gentlest of all, let her ride around the island. This made Cynthia very excited. Few people have the honor of riding the legendary beast. Back in the courtyard of the manor, Cynthia calmed down her excited heart and sat down beside Lu Chen. It seems Garchomp likes it too. Cynthia looked at Garchomp, who was competing with Gyarados and Scyther in the distance, as well as her own other Pokémon, with a faint smile on her beautiful face. Tichu and Larvitar fell asleep on the grass after playing. The energetic Shalebi is playing with his new friends on a big rock. Eevee, its new buddy. Cynthia looked at Eevee with a wry smile. She was really careless. Why did she bring all the experimental subjects here? This Eevee is not Cynthia's Pokémon. It was the experimental subject that her grandfather asked her to bring over to Professor Oak. Professor Oak and her grandfather worked together on new topics. Various evolutions of Eevee. The Eevee evolutions known today are Fire Pokémon, Water Pokémon, Thunder Pokémon, Moon Pokémon, and Sun Pokémon. These were discovered by Professor Oak. Eevee is also the Pokémon known to have the most evolved forms in the world. There are as many as 5. After research, Professor Oak found that this is due to the extremely unstable ability of Eevee's gene. So when encountering different evolutionary stones, it will produce different reactions. Even without the evolution stone, it will evolve when the intimacy value with the trainer reaches the mind-to-heart connection. Evolving into Moon Pokémon or Sun Pokémon is based on the premise of intimacy. This is true because the extreme instability of the Eevee gene will also cause different evolutions due to the different environments of day and night. Professor Oak originally thought that there were only 5 evolutionary types of Eevee, but Cynthia's grandfather discovered that Eevee's genetic instability is not limited to 5, but as many as 6 or more. So he guessed. In addition to the 5 known evolutionary types of EV, there may be 1 or even 2 or more undiscovered evolutionary types. He gave his research material to Professor Oak. Professor Oak did some experiments and found that it was true. The EV gene chain had more than 6 kinds of instability. Then, together they launched a new round of topics on the possibility of more than 6 evolutionary types of EV. The EV brought by Cynthia is a carefully selected experimental subject by her grandfather. This EV has the strongest genetic instability. This EV is selected from nearly 1,000 to test which EV gene is most unstable. Her grandfather took blood samples from 1,000 EV, then grind the evolution stone into powder, add these blood samples, and then observe the degree of response of the blood data. This EV's blood sample is the most responsive of all EVs. So, her grandfather asked Cynthia to bring this EV and the latest research data to Professor Oak. She never expected that this important experimental subject would be confused by herself. She confused her own Pokeball with EV's Pokeball. He gave the Pokeball containing his own Pokémon to Professor Oak and brought the Pokeball containing EV. Dojuo beep. The communicator rang. Cynthia took it out and saw that it was Professor Oak. Cynthia, you seem to be confused. This is your Lucario's Pokeball. Cynthia smiled wryly. Professor, I see. I just found out that there was a confusion. I'll send it to you tomorrow morning. Not far away. Shalebi and EV in the grass, playing on a large exposed rock on the ground. Compare. Shalebi saw the big rock, the place where the sun does not shine, with a damp place a little green. Moss. Shalebi let out a small sigh. Because it had never seen such grass growing, it was so strange and slippery. For a while it felt very interesting. It stretched out its small hand and tapped it on the moss. Greenness emerged in its hand. In an instant, the rapid growth of moss spread, covering the entire big rock in an instant. Of the kings, next to it, as soon as EV touched the moss, his body froze, and then a dazzling white light radiated from it. This white light startled Lu Chen and Cynthia, who were sitting in the courtyard. Cynthia looked at EV, whose body was filled with white light, and was a little stunned. No, EV evolved? Could it be that I was bored and saw an evolution stone? Cynthia wants to cry, but has no tears. This is the most genetically unstable EV. This experimental body will not be destroyed by myself. Great. Professor Oak. She hesitated and planned to tell Professor Oak that she would not pass tomorrow, and EV had evolved. But immediately afterwards, the white light on EV dissipated. Cynthia's eyes widened suddenly. Her small mouth opened slightly. Hey, hello, what's up with Cynthia? Cynthia said blankly, I will go back to you now. This piece has been written for more than 4 hours, and I have been deleting, modifying, and modifying it. For the part of the super ancient Dragonite, I am sure that Schweibe will have disagreements on the setting of authority here. I have been deleting, modifying, and modifying bows. I have been hesitant to write this way, but the outline has been set, the authority to open land, the exclusive skills of beasts, the authority of the population, the exclusive skills of the population. These are all my own processing and expansion on the basis of the original work. No other author has ever written like this, and I don't know if I like it or not. I don't know if I should write it or not. But I've already conceived these later, and I can't change them. Han Hanlong also has a big part in the scene, but after changing it, it collapsed. After thinking about it, let's write it. Although there will be controversy, if you really can't accept it, I will trouble Schweibe to look at it as a parallel world of Pokémon. Chapter 64. Eevee's 6th evolutionary form. Yolanda Dragonite's horror. Naming of experimental subject. Mutuo. On the big rock, Eevee is covered with white awns. After the white glow dissipated, Eevee has changed. It evolved. The evolved Eevee looks like a combination of a cat and a fox, with an elegant and tall cat body, but a fox face. Its body is olivine in color, and its claws and cochlea are dark brown on the limbs. There are leaves that look like succulents growing on the body, and there's a green crescent moon on the forehead. Its tail is not the tail of an animal, but a green banana leaf. It looks full of vigor and vitality of plants, and it is extremely elegant. Cynthia's eyes widened, and a storm arose in her heart. This evolutionary type of EV is not among the 5 known evolutionary types at all. This is the 6th evolution form of EV. Cynthia's small mouth is slightly open, and the 6th evolutionary form of EV, which my grandfather and Professor Oak have studied for a year without any clue, just appeared in front of me? According to the naming method of several other forms of EV. Cynthia also guessed the name of this new form of EV. Grass Pokémon. The appearance is related to leafage, and this new evolutionary form of EV is obviously grass type. After water, fire, electricity, moon, sun, the 6th type is grass type. Cynthia can't wait to take it back to Professor Oak. Professor Oak and Grandpa were right. EV really has 6 or more evolutions. By BB, Shalebi also looked at Pokemon Yi cutely. His little partner had evolved, but when he realized that Pokemon Yi had the same attribute as himself. A cheerful laugh came from its mouth. It lay on a leaf Pokemon's head, curiously fiddled with the leaf on the other's forehead. Should you want to take this Pokemon back? Lu Chen hugged Shalebi. Just now, Cynthia was talking to the person on the other end of the phone, and Lu Chen vaguely heard it. Cynthia nodded. This Pokemon is related to a very important research of my 2 elders, Mr. Lu Chen. Then I'll go back first. Cynthia took the Pokemon back into the Pokeball. Okay, be careful on the road. Lu Chen touched the dejected Shalebi. Okay, Cynthia is going to take you Pokemon back, and I will bring it here to play with you next time. You Pokemon? Cynthia was startled. Mr. Lu Chen knows this Pokemon? Lu Chen smiled and didn't explain. You can't tell people that you have a system. You know the Pokemon's name through the system's detection function, right? Leaf Pokemon is indeed much nicer and more appropriate than grass Pokemon. She didn't doubt Lu Chen's words. Since Mr. Lu Chen said it was Pokemon Yi, then the 6th evolutionary type of EV must be Pokemon Yi. Cynthia originally wanted to go back tomorrow and waited for Han Hanlong to come back today to test his tone and test Han Hanlong's preferences. See if you can help the Yulong family get Dragonite back. But EV suddenly evolved into a Pokemon. It proved the existence of the 6th evolutionary type. Once this article is published, it will definitely cause a huge shock in the whole world, because almost everyone thinks that there are only 5 evolutionary forms of EV. Academic Pokemon researchers have tried countless methods without finding a 6th evolutionary form. Once published, it is a depth bomb. Farewell to Lu Chen. Cynthia left home island on Garchomp. Master, it's time to eat. Sabrina, who was cooking in the manor, raised her head and shouted. With an apprentice, Lu Chen naturally didn't have to worry about the daily cooking. When Sabrina saw Cynthia leaving in Garchomp, she was stunned. Master, did Sister Cynthia leave? She was secretly happy. This woman still couldn't bear the pastoral life and left. It was best not to come back again. She went back for something. Oh, Sabrina grumbled. Almost an hour. Garchomp's figure landed in Professor Oak's backyard. Putting away Garchomp, she walked in. In the lab, Professor Oak was wearing a white coat, fiddling with the instrument. In front of him, there are 9 test tubes, each containing EV's blood. There's something like 553 infrared probes on each test tube to record the information in the blood. On the left-hand side of Professor Oak, there is also an evolution stone. Firestone, Thunderstone, Sunstone, Leafstone, Moonstone heads. In addition to these 5 regular evolutionary stones, there are also several precious and rare evolutionary stones. Shiny Stone, Dusk Stone, and Dawn Stone. There are a total of 8 evolutionary stones. These are the evolutionary stones found today, almost all of which are here. Professor Oak scrapes a layer of powder over each evolution stone. These evolutionary stone powders were then poured into 8 test tubes, with the 9th test tube serving as a control for primal. In an instant, some test tubes showed a sharp reaction. The fastest reaction is to pour into the tubes of Firestone, Thunderstone, Waterstone. On the screen corresponding to the 3 test tubes, a 3D simulated EV appeared, and white light appeared from the bodies of the 3 virtual EV, which evolve into 3 types of Pokémon corresponding to the evolution stones: fire, thunder, and water. As for the other 5 test tubes, there was no change. Professor Oak came to pour 2 test tubes containing Moonstone and Sunstone. Press a button in front of you. The light above the test tube with the Sunstone flashed brightly, giving off sunlight like the sun. And above the test tube with Moonstone, the lights are dimmed. Mimic night is coming. Suddenly, the computer screen corresponding to the 2 test tubes also changed. A simulated 3D EV appears on the screen. Of the 2 EV, one evolves towards the Moon Pokémon and the other toward the Sun Pokémon. But they didn't fully evolve. But halfway through, they stopped. Because Sun Pokémon and Moon Pokémon not only need specific sunshine and night environment, but also related to the intimacy of trainer. Professor Oak removed the 2 test tubes and took out the spare 2 test tubes. The new 2 test tubes did not add any evolutionary stones. He replaced it and re-simulated the sunshine and the bright moon. 3D EV on the screen still evolves. This also means that Sunstone and Moonstone have little to do with EV's evolution into Sun Pokémon and Moon Pokémon. This is where all evolutions of EV have been found: water, fire, thunder, sun, E. As for the other test tubes, there is no change. These evolutionary stones have no effect on EV. That is, it cannot activate the unstable gene of EV, thereby inducing evolution. Professor Oak fell into deep thought. He has tried this kind of experiment countless times. In order to test whether EV also has an evolution type related to the environment and whether like the Moon Pokémon and the Sun Pokémon, he simulated many kinds of environments and weathers. There are sandstorms, cloudy days, thunderstorms, sunny days, snowy days, hail weather, dusk, and sunset. He even guessed whether it has something to do with altitude. He specially bought a plane and conducted experiments at an altitude of nearly 10,000 meters. But in the end, everything was a failure. About the possible existence of a 6th or more evolutionary type of EV, this research project has been going on for almost a year, and neither he nor Cynthia's grandfather has worked it out. Professor Oak was also thrown into doubt. Yes or no? EV really only has 5 evolutionary types, although there are 6 types of gene instability, or even more than 6 types. But maybe, except for these 5 evolutionary types, several unstable gene expressions are actually useless genes. This assumption is not impossible. Professor Oak pondered and waited until he got the specially breed EV from Cynthia and tried again. If it doesn't work, the research topic of EV's 6th evolution type and above can only be declared a failure. Ka! The sound of pushing the door came. Professor Oak, it worked out, it really did. Adge, Cynthia's excited voice sounded. What worked? Professor Oak was taken aback. Cynthia took out a pokeball in her hand. White light flickers. One looks like a normal fox, with succulent-like protruding green stripes on its body, a leaf on its forehead, and a banana leaf-shaped tail. As soon as it appears, it gives people a feeling of vitality and greenery. Professor Oak was startled. What is this Pokémon? A newly discovered Pokémon? It looks really good, but I don't know if I've done too much about the EV's evolution experiment recently. He looks a bit like EV now, and the Pokémon in front of him also looks like EV, etc. His eyes suddenly widened. Like EV? His eyes were wide open. He couldn't believe it to the extreme, and his breathing became extremely short. Hey, Cynthia, this Pokémon. He stammered and asked, afraid of getting an answer from Cynthia that would disappoint him. The 6th evolution of EV, Pokémon. Cynthia smiled. Professor Oak jumped up excitedly, looking at Pokémon as if he was looking at a peerless treasure. His eyes looked like some perverted / strange sorghum, and his whole body was trembling slightly. Their research direction is not wrong. There's a 6th, or even more than 6 evolutionary forms of EV. Its evolutionary form is definitely more than the 5 known ones. Quick, tell me how this EV evolved into a Pokémon. Professor Oak asked impatiently. He was eager to know the answer and solve his confusion for a year. During this year, he has been conducting experiments continuously, but he has obtained nothing at all. He wants to know the answer. Cynthia described the situation at that time. Professor Oak listens carefully, not wanting to miss any detail. You mean Eevee evolve into leaf Pokémon on a big rock? Cynthia nodded. Professor Oak is a research madman, and he does what he says. He found a stone in his yard, smashed a small piece, and put it in the blood test tube. But nothing changes. Professor Oak frowned slightly. By the way, the stone seems to be covered with moss. Moss! Without a word, Professor Oak, a research madman, immediately walked out and found a moss-covered stone in a corner outside the laboratory, where the sun could not shine. Back in the laboratory, I carefully picked up a piece of moss with tweezers and threw away the test tube. Still useless. Professor Oak took another gravel with moss onto the small hammer bridge. There was no reaction at all, and the test tube didn't even change at all. Cynthia is also puzzled. What on earth is this? What's going on? All the details have been explained in detail. Professor Oak looked at each Pokemon thoughtfully. Since the details are the same, that's the only difference with Pokemon. Before this Pokemon evolved, it was carefully breeder, and then out of 1,000 EV, the most genetically unstable EV was selected. Chances are, Pokemon are different too. Professor Oak directly connected Cynthia's grandfather's communication video. Hey, old wood, what's the matter? A gray-haired, amiable old man appeared at the end of the video, Cynthia's grandfather and Lou Professor. Anliu Professor and Professor Oak are best friends and travel partners when they were young. The duo is also known in research circles as the Willowwood Duo. Old Lutu, look what this is. Professor Oak points the camera at the graceful leaf Pokemon. Professor and Lou was also stunned. Have you discovered a new species of Pokemon? No, it's our research. 11 research results? Professor Anliu muttered, and then he stood up suddenly with a bang, and the chair fell to the ground. His eyes were red, and his entire face was on the screen, excited. You mean our hypothesis has been confirmed? This is the 6th form of EV. Yes, it's all thanks to Cynthia. Professor Oak continued, but now we're in trouble. He described what happened and explained the difficulties he had just encountered. Professor Anliu is worthy of being a close friend of Professor Oak, and she immediately understood what Professor Oak meant. You're saying that, while all the details are the same, nothing has changed, possibly due to Pokemon? Yes, you still have this EV. No. Do you have the blood sample from when Pokemon was an EV? Have. Professor Anliu also acted resolutely and quickly brought the reserved blood samples. Because the EV was going to be sent to you, I kept 10 test tubes, but I didn't expect it to come in handy. Under the command of Professor Oak, Professor Anliu started the first attempt. First, knock a piece of gravel into it. The experiment failed to no avail. At the beginning of the second experiment, a stone with moss was found. The moss was picked up with tweezers, and the bottle was thrown away. Experiment failed. Nothing changed. At the beginning of the third experiment, a small piece of mossy stone was knocked off and thrown in together with the mossy gravel. In an instant, the whole blood sample seemed to react abnormally violently. On the computer, the instrument was analyzing frantically and quickly built a 3D model, which EV evolved into a leaf Pokemon. Ha 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 ha! The two old men who add up to 120 to 30 years old laugh like children. Dance across the screen in their respective laboratories. It worked. A year of hard work was not in vain. But why is this EV reacting? What's different? Then I'll take a blood test. It shouldn't be. What is the principle? Do we still need conditions that we don't know before we can evolve into Pokemon? Following the video, the two old men hurriedly entered the Research Maniac contest condition again. Cynthia has seen this scene countless times. She smiled helplessly. At such an old age, she still works so hard. Go out quietly and close the door. Do you know where Yolongdu is? Mr. Lance is in the field. An assistant at the Professor Oak laboratory replied. Cynthia nodded, thanked her, and walked towards the battle arena of Professor Oak's laboratory. Professor Oak's laboratory is well equipped with all the facilities. The battle hall is usually used to learn about battles and to test the power of Pokemon skills. 10 minutes later, Cynthia came to the field of battle. Bang, 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 there was an explosion inside. No, Gyarados, your skills have slowed down, and Aerodactyl, your timing for using skills is getting faster. The voice of Yolondu came from inside. Tomorrow is the Kanto region's elite challenge. He is currently preparing for special training. Without the trump card Dragonite, his strength has dropped by at least 50%. Tomorrow, it has been confirmed that several families that are hostile to the Yulong family will send someone to snipe shot himself. Once he loses, the Yulong family will become more and more difficult. The Oak family of Professor Oak will not participate in these, but will not help. This is the position of the Oak family, absolutely neutral in alliance, never involved in gang formation. Therefore, although Yolondu and Professor Oak have a good relationship, the other party will not help. The jungle of the jungle is an inevitable competition. The other party didn't want to fire up the Yulong family, but wanted to snatch the other party's property and covet Dragonite. It is to fundamentally let the Yulong family die slowly. Duh. There is the sound of the door opening and closing. Yulongdu, who was lost in thought, came back to his senses. How is it, Cynthia? Yolondu rushed to greet her and asked with a face full of hope, hoping to get the answer she wanted from Cynthia's mouth. It's in the one, and the super ancient Dragonite is on its island. Yolondu clenched his fist hard, compared to not knowing the whereabouts of the super ancient Dragonite. This is the best news. After all, knowing that the super ancient Dragonite is there, there's hope to get Dragonite back. Then what does that person say? Yulongdu asked nervously. Cynthia shook her head, not knowing how to organize the words for a while. No, can it? Yulongdu's face turned pale, and the opportunity for a comeback was right in front of him. Our Yulong family paid any price for any reason. I just asked for forgiveness and put my return the Dragonite to us, even half of it. Cynthia smiled bitterly. I don't know how to tell you. That is, the one who doesn't care about this matter. What you want to bribe now is a Dragonite. A Dragonite? Well, the super ancient Dragonite is the subordinate of this Dragonite in my mouth. And this Dragonite is that Pokémon. That one doesn't care about this matter. So now it's all about trying to please this Dragonite. Cynthia said, that's the way it is, although it's a bit convoluted. Yolondu was also a little confused, although he didn't know what was going on, but he figured it out. The biggest problem now was to bribe a Dragonite. And then the Dragonite opened his mouth, the Dragonite of the family can come back. But how strong is that Dragonite that Cynthia said, and the super ancient Dragonite is actually only its subordinates? You should prepare well for tomorrow's battle. I'll go and find out what it likes tomorrow. Yolondu nodded. Now that's the only way to go. Home Island, hoo-hooing soaring in the sky. A group of Dragonite flew over and returned triumphantly. They landed on the east coast of Home Island. The king returned to the throne. Han stood on his throne, which was actually a big rock at the highest point on the east bank. The location below is the location of the super ancient Dragonite. Below that is a group of normal Dragonites. The super ancient Dragonite no longer uses blood control to control these Dragonite. Those who know the current affairs are heroes, and these Dragonites also know that they can't run away. Rather than being controlled like puppets, it's better to be obedient and obedient. Han touched his chin. This fight was very enjoyable for him, and he let out a mouthful of accumulated anger. But it remembered that the BD who was beaten up by himself, every time his subordinates did something to make him happy. It will reward its subordinates with things. Sometimes it is tree fruit, and sometimes it is the opportunity to enter the inheritance cave. The first time I went out, I won a big victory. Shouldn't I be rewarded with something? It sat down, tilted its silly head slightly, scratched its head with its hands, and fell in a deep thought. What can I reward myself? Suddenly, its eyes lit up, but it was a bit reluctant, and finally gritted its teeth. It growled to the super ancient Dragonite. You are waiting for me here. It spread its wings and came to the courtyard of the manor. There was also a single-story small house in the courtyard, but it was as high as 5 meters. This is the nest that Sabrina built for Han Han sneaked in and took out a bag from the corner. The bag is filled with tree berries, very delicious tree berries grown by the owner. This is the inventory it has always had. There are 6 of them. Picking up the bag, Han Hanlong flew away again, back to the east coast of the island again. Roar! It looked inside the bag, and there were 2 white tree fruits. The owner said it seemed to be called Kinyuan fruit. After eating this fruit, I feel warm all over my body, making me feel comfortable and want to rest. But there are only 2 fruits. It intends to reward meritorious deeds. First of all, the biggest hero, the super ancient Dragonite. It threw a quenching fruit in the past. The super ancient Dragonite took a bite. Boom! There was a muffled sound in the body, and the super ancient Dragonite found that his strength seemed to be a little stronger. A fruit that can make all 3-level beasts stronger? It looked at Han Hanlong, Wong, in disbelief that he actually possessed such a thing. Roar! The ultra-ancient Dragonite let out a low growl, telling Han Hanlong to keep it. This kind of thing has to be kept for himself to eat. Han Hanlong scratched his head. The master has planted quite a lot, and the next time it will mature soon. The ultra-ancient Dragonite fell silent. The master of the king, the man who can make all 3 first-level beasts follow. It has a hunch that Wong, in the hands of this man, will become stronger than before. Ultra-ancient Dragonite no longer blocks. Next, Han Hanlong gave the second Kinyuan fruit to a Dragonite. This Dragonite fights fiercely, so Han Hanlong remembers it. But when it gave the second quenching fruit to the Dragonite, a trace of confusion flashed in Han Hanlong's eyes. This Dragonite, I seem to have seen it somewhere. Where have you seen it? It scratched its head and growled at the Dragonite. Have we met before? The Dragonite responded with a soft growl, expressing his meaning. On the coast of Vermilion City, you suddenly appeared, and then my master ordered me to fight with you. Han Hanlong suddenly realized that it was the Dragonite that fought with him when he lost control of his strength. The owner of this Dragonite is a bit clumsy and seems to want to subdue himself in the end. However, why does this Dragonite have an owner here? Han Hanlong thought for a while. It should be that the other party's owner didn't want it. It didn't bother to ask. Put the second quenching fruit in its hand. The Dragonite of Yolongdu took a bite. A warm current ran through the limbs and bones. It was as if some shackles in the body were broken, and a strange force appeared in the body. But it knows what the force is, the power of origin. It was extremely astonished and broke through by itself, legendary level. In this way, breakthrough after eating a fruit? Next, Han Hanlong also distributed the remaining 3 vermilion fruits. The merits and deeds are rewarded. Han Hanlong flew away. It's time to go back to find the owner, otherwise there will be no food to eat. At the same time, Kanto, a small island that is not on the sea map. Team Rocket's home base. A huge laboratory full of sci-fi sense. Here is a huge nutrition cabin. In the yin and yang warehouse, there is a humanoid creature. It holds its knees with its hands, and its eyes are closed. What is striking is that it has a thick forward slash long tail. Behind it, densely packed lines are connected. In the laboratory, the staff is busy. Boss, the vital signs are intact. Boss, the genetic stability is good. The neurons are well connected. The researchers in the laboratory are reporting their work. Unexpected. Boom. A sound came from a nearby instrument. At first, everyone thought it was an auditory hallucination. But next, boom, the sound turned out to be clearer, and it came out through the loudspeaker of the instrument. What's going on? What's wrong? Giovanni frowned indignantly. Good thing, boss. The experimental subject has a heartbeat. Giovanni was overjoyed and looked at the humanoid creature in the nutrition cabin. Finally, there was a heartbeat. That also means that the birth of consciousness is not far away. Boss, there's a heartbeat. We succeeded. And when consciousness is born, we will completely create a miracle. That's right, boss. This experimental subject doesn't have a name yet, so I asked the boss to help me get one. Giovanni was in a good mood, finally about to make it. He looked at a mural hanging beside him. It was a vague figure that seemed to be hit by Ma Hank, but barely able to distinguish. This is a pink kitten. It has a long tail. Giovanni narrowed his eyes and said lightly, Mutuo. The name of the experimental subject is Mutuo. This chapter 8,000 words. I am so stupid. Originally coded the first chapter 4,000 at midnight. As a result, I locked the number of words, locked 4,000, accidentally clicked on a random number of words next to it. Randomly in 1,000 words, 1W words, choose a value lock on. And it turned out to be 8,000 locked for me. I coded until 3 o'clock in the morning and almost cracked. Chapter 65. Groudon's anxiety. Take Larvitar to the gym the next day. The sun rises and spreads the first ray of sunlight to the mountains, forests, and land. Kanto, Palatown, Professor Oak Laboratory. Cynthia is taking Garchomp to her morning exercises in the backyard of the laboratory, which is her daily habit. Stretch your body and move your muscles. I saw Professor Oak come out with a breakfast plate containing sandwiches and milk in his hand. His hair was messed up like a chicken coop, his eyes were red and bloodshot, and his brows were tightly wrinkled, as if he was thinking about something. Looking at it like this, it was obvious that yesterday it was inevitable to conduct experiments all night. And it's not just him. He stood the communicator on the table and beeped hoot hoot at the communication threshold. On the screen of the communicator, Professor and Lou's face was reflected. The two are clearly talking on video. And Professor is also having breakfast. No, old Lou too, what is the reason? Professor Oak said, we have been experimenting all night. This EV is stronger than other EV, except that its gene is unstable. There is no other difference. Yeah, I'm also very surprised. Why is this EV evolving in a leaf Pokemon? Does the evolution of leaf Pokemon require genetic instability? Professor and Lou was also very puzzled. They experimented all night and learned that on Moss Rock, EV will evolve into leaf Pokemon. They tried it out with a few normal EV standing on a mossy rock, but neither will evolve. Once the mossy gravel was thrown into the blood sample from the previous Pokemon, EV, the evolution occurred again. This phenomenon made Professor Oak and Professor and Lou feel very strange. Why normal EV won't evolve when standing on mossy stone? As for the leaf Pokemon, EV, with a high degree of gene instability, the moss stone will activate one of the instability in the EV gene, thereby inducing evolution. Everyone is EV. It doesn't make sense that you can evolve, but other EV cannot. The only difference between the two is the leaf Pokemon, EV, is the one with the highest genetic instability selected from among the many EV populations carefully breeder. Other than that, it wasn't any different. Professor Oak and Professor Anliu also boldly put forward a hypothesis. The conditions for evolving into a Pokemon are harsh, and there are requirements for the degree of gene instability. Only when the requirements are met can evolution be induced. However, it was subsequently overturned. Because all EV are the same, there are more than 5 instabilities in the genes. All EVs are the same. The spirit, EV, is only relatively strong in the instability of the gene. So, it is impossible for a Pokemon population to have the condition that only a single Pokemon can evolve. Professor Oak was lost in thought. Old Lou too. Do you think that in addition to the first factor of the Moss Stone, a second factor is needed to induce EV to evolve into a leaf Pokemon? Professor and Lou asked, why do you say that? Professor Oak sorted out his thoughts. If EV really only needs to stand on the Moss Stone to evolve into a leaf Pokemon, then you say, is it our turn to discover the 6th evolutionary type of EV? Professor and Lou was stunned for a moment and understood the meaning of what he said. Indeed so. They went wrong before. If EV only needs to stand on the Moss Stone, it can evolve into a leaf Pokemon. There are tens of thousands of trainers with EV all over the world, no matter how small the probability is. There are so many EV, it is impossible not to have one standing on a mossy stone, right? If you can evolve Samson Pokemon by standing on it, then the 5 evolutionary types known to EV will have long been reduced to 6. It can't be that long, and no one has ever owned a Pokemon. So, Professor and Lou raised his head. So what do you mean? Professor Oak said, we went into a misunderstanding, and we always believed that EV evolved into a leaf Pokemon just stood on the Moss Stone. But the fact is, will there be a second inducing factor besides the Moss Stone? And this second induction factor because some Ebu genes are extremely unstable. So, can this second induction factor be exempted? The two old men seem to have opened a new door, and they are discussing in full swing. Look at the research maniac who has entered into the study of contest condition again. Helplessness flashed in Cynthia's eyes. Leaving the backyard, she boarded the Garchomp and left Pallet Town, flying in the direction of Homeland Island. Vermilion City, Vermilion Duel Field, also known as Elite Duel Field. Every year, the Elite Challenge will be held here. At this time, the Vermilion Duel Arena was extremely lively, and the huge auditorium was full. No reason, because today is the Elite Challenge scene in Kanto. The auditorium surrounds a huge battle arena. Accepting the challenge today are the 4 elites in Kanto. Will Yolongdu be able to defend successfully? Oh, it's a pity how strong Yolongdu used to be. I remember that he just became an elite 4 years ago. Someone challenged him, but he was taken away by his Dragonite. That's right, everyone in the Yulong family is in the army. But now, the Yulong family is about to decline. I have someone in the alliance. The Yulong family used to be very powerful and offended many big families. Now that the Yulong family is in decline, these big families want the Yulong family step on it to death. I've heard that too. You can find out by paying attention to the personnel transfers of the Kanto Alliance and the Chengdu Alliance. The Yulong family used to have high positions in the 2 alliances. Now, they have been transferred to the pension department. Some were even dismissed directly. It's terrible. Let's watch the game. Today's game must be very exciting. Most of the audience here came for Yolongdu. They wondered whether Yolongdu could defend his elite status. The rules of the Elite Challenge are simple. The challenger submits the challenge application and specifies the elite who want a challenge. B. It is impossible for an elite to face so many challengers. So there is a rule. If the challenger is more than 1 person, a battle will be held, and the winning one can challenge the elite. In previous years, Yolongdu would not be challenged at all, and at this time in previous years, he would just come for a formality. But this year, there are 40 challengers. A man named Pristine stood out among 40 challengers. Yolongdu also knows that Pristine is one of the biggest rival families of the Yulong family, the trainer supported by the Kinghuo family. Please invite Elite Yolongdu and our challenger Pristine to come on stage. In this battle, whether Yolongdu can defend the throne and whether Pristine can challenge successfully, let's wait and see.
No more novels? Take part in the voting. The most requested novels and those with the most likes will be chosen for publication on euroaudiobooks.com. There, I can upload as much as I want without the risk of receiving a strike. Our 18 novels and other content that exceed what is morally acceptable are only published on Patreon or the free novels page. Remember, the site is funded by donations on Ko-fi and Patreon memberships.